Hapana kitu mzuri. Anyway, CTU, how many Fridays have we had this month?
This month of January? I think they're around 3.
Nope.
This month of January?
Inclusive.
3.
This is the 4th Friday.
All right.
And we are still not done.
You know where you get your Fridays from. me where I get mine from, they're 3.
There are 4. And we are not yet. There's still going to be a next one.
Kwani, the first was a Friday?
Yes.
In that case, you may actually be right. However...
You know, it's a fact. It's not a matter of opinion.
The number of Fridays?
Yes.
I agree with you completely. It's not a matter of opinion. But my opinion is...
Oh, well, it's going to come anyway. Yeah.
But the way you see it...
In my... Yes, from where I come from, my friend, you know, the art of not losing an argument, especially one which you've lost.
Hey, how are you, Ndu?
I am fine, thank you.
Right.
Everything is well in the kingdom.
Right.
I have adjusted my crown suitably, and we are ready to go.
Okay. You've also been watching Bridgerton, I gather.
Sorry, what?
Okay.
Or The Crown.
Or The Crown.
Okay.
Or both.
Or Versailles.
CT. Huh? Or? Which is that one about King Henry?
King Henry VIII, you mean?
Yes.
My mind has, should I say, betrayed me and gone blank on that one.
But remember, you've watched it.
Yes, I have. I did. That's when I learned about characters like Anne Boleyn. And yes. The man who would be a polygamist.
Yes. Okay. And how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Are you well, Eric?
I am
You
very
survived Thursday?
well. I survived Thursday. And I'm just looking and thinking, there's another Thursday in January.
Oh, wow. Okay. This January is not doing you well.
Man. Hey. Okay. Welcome to the show, everybody. We have a lot of conversations to have today. One, let's come back to this BBI conversation. So BBI, is it popular? Is it not popular? So the International Commission of Jurists has released a statement. They have a few things to say about the Building Bridges Initiative and the constitutional amendment. The IABC also has something to tell you. Maybe you signed up and maybe you are not aware. Please go and check.
Maybe you signed up and you're not aware.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Because they've verified the signatures that were handed over to them by the BBI Secretariat. And now they're saying, okay, we find them to be okay. Now you just confirm that they are okay. So there's that. And a lot of other conversations to have. We are in a situation where we still keep asking ourselves, just like the conversation we were having yesterday, we have lawmakers who go to Parliament and they're not always making the law based on good manners, but they're sometimes just being made to pass laws. They don't make laws. They're just a law-passing Parliament. Some laws are made elsewhere, then they are just brought to the National Assembly or the Senate to be passed by people who have become very good at being rubber stamps. So we'll have those conversations about our morals and what it is that we do and how we cannot get to a point where we just led by the rule of law and good governance and what we need to do about that. Yeah. It's our culture.
You're very
right or
reflective this
wrong.
morning, Eric, aren't you?
Yeah. That's what happens.
Well, it means if we are going to discuss morality,
Eh.
our friend Mohammed from Wakijembe should be delighted this morning.
Yeah, moral values. Yeah.
Mohammed
atazunguka mbuyu leo.
Yes. For all you know, forget Zunguka and he may even grow one.
Yeah. So let's start the conversation on COVID.
Okay, so let's look at what's happening in COVID around the world. First of all, let's start with the global numbers, and then specifically for Kenya, right? So yesterday, Kenya recorded 186 new cases and 3 new deaths. This takes Kenya's numbers now to 99,630. And in news coming out from what we saw yesterday as well, 2 new cases from what was recorded actually are of the South Africa coronavirus variant, right? So the new strain that was discovered in South Africa, 2 people who have contracted COVID in Kenya have this new variant. It came from the Ministry of Health, and Dr. Amoth, who's the acting DG at the Ministry of Health.
He's still acting.
He's still acting.
Thank you. You took that out of my mouth. How long has this man acted?
He's acting.
The man is sitting somewhere as a director of the WHO. In Kenya, he's acting.
How?
They've just not gotten around to the business,
No.
Hey. Through a pandemic, you have an acting
DG.
DG.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, if they didn't think that he
was
was
up to
fit,
task.
why didn't they bring somebody else to act instead?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe they've just not got
Why
around
have they
to
not confirmed the person?
Confirming him, these things take time.
What does it
People are
take time?
busy-
What?
People are busy with COVID.
What's required here to
Confirmation.
confirm?
Let me.
Clearly,
This
he's
is-
fit the bill. Clearly, he's done the job.
This
I
is
mean,
the
he's
senior
passed-
most medic in the country.
Yes.
All right?
Recognized by the world.
He's the man who is making decisions on how our medical healthcare system is basically going. But he is in an acting capacity for
Yes,
over a
he
year.
is. Surely, is there not some statute of limitation as to how long somebody can actually act?
Yeah.
There should
bwana.
be.
Because at this rate, you can act forever.
Hey. So he's not getting a full salary of DG.
Not quite yet, I guess.
Okay, anyway, continue. So what did the acting DG tell us?
So he said that these patients who had been found with this new variant had left the country, all right? They were asymptomatic, but they've left Kenya. The new coronavirus strain identified in South Africa appears to be more transmissible than earlier variants. So the conditions under which these individuals left, we don't know,
Wait,
but
so
they left.
they tested positive and they have left the country.
Yes. And this variant
Have they
is more
gone to South Africa?
transmissible. They didn't give details of where they went to.
Was there any connection of travel to South Africa or from South Africa?
No. But they were not Kenyans. This is what we do know. Okay?
There's a reality here that we've just been introduced to. It was there, but certain things exist, but until you actually bring them out into the light, you'll assume that you're bringing them into the light is what has actually brought about their existence, but they were there all along. Anytime you have a pandemic such as this one, what we're dealing with is the information we currently have. What we don't know, buckets and bucket loads of it.
Yes.
We will discover in due course. And as for variants, guaranteed, we will have even more variants. Yes. Those who are in the business of developing vaccines have their work cut out for them.
They do. Still on this coronavirus variant, the one that was detected in South Africa, research is showing that the vaccines may not work as well against this particular variant. And remember that we're talking about the one that was first discovered in South Africa. A similar one was found in the UK and another one in Spain that originated in South Africa, right? So they're also saying with this variant that people could face the risk of reinfection. So this was preliminary research that was published this week. That which was detected in South Africa in December, it could evade the defense vaccines built in
May I
our
ask a
body's
question?
immune systems.
May I
Yes.
ask a question?
Yes.
Even before this variant, the risk of reinfection was always there.
Yes.
So, is it that the risk of reinfection has increased?
Yes, it's greater with this variant.
How much greater?
Well, we don't know in terms of percentages, but and like they said, it's preliminary research. They're going to be able to release it as they do some more studies because they've carried samples from a number of people testing with antibodies and such. And so then they'll be able to release the information as soon as they get it. But from what they've seen, transmission is higher. Symptoms come on much quicker. The window period for infection is much smaller. So this is what they've been able to find, and it's worrying them because they are saying, with all of these things taken into consideration, the chances or the defense that the body would essentially build up against it are lower, and so they're not sure then if the vaccines will work. Okay, so this is what they're looking at. Research is still being done so that they can figure out what to do, but right now they're saying that it is baffling researchers. So the lab tests are going on. They're saying it's a bit hard to tell just how difficult it would be right now, but with time they should be able to find out this. All right.
Okay. Now, Kemri released some info yesterday and what they project about schools reopening. And they say that the peak of the impact of schools reopening is likely to be felt in the country around March. So they consider the most plausible effect of schools reopening on the 4th of January to be that the transmission rate in Kenya will increase the time-varying reproductive number, that is the RT, by 25%, and increase mixing between social clusters that were not in contact while schools were closed. Under this most plausible scenario, they project that the rate of COVID-19 case and death incidence will peak in mid-March 2021. Under this most plausible scenario, 13.7 thousand new determined COVID cases and 116 new COVID deaths could be attributed to us by the 1st of June 2021. So the impact of schools reopening on COVID likely to be felt mid-March. But also they've said that in their projections, the severity of what we could call the third wave may not be as that of the second wave.
Well, I guess it's just, in this case, unfortunately, it's a wait-see kind of scenario.
Actually, it's a little more than a wait-see with the Camry because they have been involved. It isn't advertised. It isn't out there. They're not giving details because it's a process that's going on. But research is actually being done on these matters. So when a statement like that is made, is from, should we say, what they have garnered so far and the trajectory and the patterns that they have seen.
Yeah.
So it's not prediction just that is based on what happened 10 years ago. It's what they've been looking at and what they've been studying, and in the various areas they've been doing these studies. They've been looking at people who live in densely populated areas, mostly the low-rent areas. And now with all the dynamics that we have, I like the term that they've used, social clusters and the mixing of it. What then they are observing is what then will be ultimate. You can project and suppose that this is what might happen. But to speak with certainty, now that is what you do when the outcome of your research project is complete.
Sure, from a scientific point of view, they know what they're doing. From a social point of view, the rest of the population, it is a wait-see. Because I don't see, even with this information coming out, just from what we've seen in terms of behavioral patterns amongst people, they're going to say, okay, well, if they said March, let's wait and see what happens in March. Does it mean that anybody's going to change their behavior? Very unlikely. Does it mean that some people say, hold on a minute, if they've said March, between now and March, let's start washing our hands and now let's start putting on masks and maintain social distance? I don't see that happening because of this. It will be a wait-see for a lot of people. Okay, so let's wait until March and see if these numbers actually increase. Let's wait and see if they're going to then close schools as a result of that. Let's see if they're going to reenact these policies of telling us to work, remotely. You see what I mean? It's going to be that for a lot of people. They say, okay, well, since this research has come out, let's wait and see what's going to happen, and then we'll deal with it when we get there.
You know, the wait-see that you speak of, I actually spoke out of turn. I should have let you complete your statement in saying what it is you meant by the wait-see. But if you look at the wait-see attitude and you look at countries right across this globe, the truth of the matter is, if there was one thing that tells you that humanity is united in its behavior, it's COVID. These things we keep talking about as oddities in Kenya, it is replicated everywhere in the world. The only places where you don't find replicated are progressive countries like China, where they tell you how to even behave, and you toe the line. But where you have decided to experiment with the democracy and give people an opportunity to do what they like and say what they like,
good luck.
They do precisely that.
Exactly that, right?
Yes.
16 minutes after 6, let's take a break and take a look at traffic. And then we'll be looking at the headlines shortly. Good morning. The live stream is up. Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And www.spicefm.co.ke.
This is The Situation Room the only way to start your day. Spice up.
All right, mostly clear conditions.
The weather
in Nairobi this morning. We're going to see highs of 26 through this Friday and lows of 16. In Nyeri, it's mostly clear at 13 degrees, going to highs of 23 today, lows of 14. 14 will also be the low in Nakuru, currently 15, and going to highs of 27 with clear skies. Clear skies in Eldoret this morning. The sun is beckoning at 13 degrees, highs of 24. Coming down to lows of 12. It's clear in Kisumu at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 19. Kakamega is clear this morning at 15, going to highs of 29 and lows of 15 as well. It's going to be quite a warm day in Mombasa. We're seeing highs of 32. We will see highs of 32 rather. Lows of 23, but light rain in the morning right now at 25 degrees. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 27, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Likely to see some wet weather this morning. 18 degrees looking out of Kenya in Kampala. It's partly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 18. It's also raining in Dar es Salaam at 27 degrees, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Johannesburg is clear at 15 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 16. We're looking at hazy, cloudy, foggy conditions in Lagos at 25, highs of 34 and lows of 24. It's raining in Kinshasa this morning at 23. We'll see lows of 22, highs of 31. Sunny and above zero this morning, at least 1 degree in China. In Beijing specifically, it'll go to highs of 5 and lows of -8. Rain showers in Paris this morning at 6, highs of 9 and lows of 2. Whereas in London, clear skies at 4 degrees, highs of 7 and lows of 4. Thursday night coming into Friday morning, it's 4 degrees. Clear skies in New York will go to highs of 7 and lows of 1.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
19 minutes of a 6.
94
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. Everybody is online, I see, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Vincent is trying to make life difficult for me this morning because he sent a message in Swahili.
Soma too.
Soma, as best as you can.
Gee. So Vincent is awake. Hamjambo watangulizi wangu. Ningependa kuchukua fursa hii kumshukuru Mwalana Ijumaa hii ya tarehe 22 kwa kutupa uhai na kutuleta pamoja kwenye kipindi murua cha mazungumzo halisi. Tuko pamoja hadi tamati.
Well done.
Thank you.
You've read it well and it's easy to understand. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Does not require interpretation or editing.
Okay.
It's very clear.
Very good.
Especially the Maulana bit.
Maulana. Oh, Maulana. Okay. Good morning. Vincent is awake. Dagi Ogusu says good morning. Situation room. Happy to be listening from Nyakach, Nyabola. Kisi is also listening, following the Situation Room. And that's Jamhuri Amos. Robert is tuned in from Mombasa. And Alex is tuned in from Nyeri this morning. Stanley Ngashe Stan says, good morning. Great trio. CT Ndu and Eriko. Eriko specifically. He's tuned in from Chai Road, Salam and Juja. And he says, as the Trump dust settles down, has his actions vindicated the aspect of African leaders clinging to power? Laban is asking us to mark him present this morning. Jory Modhiambo, good morning from Muhoroni sub-county. You're represented in the studio as well. Happy to be part of the Situation Room. And he says hi to his Muhoroni brother, Siti Muga.
Thank you.
Moroniite.
Yes.
Muhoronians.
My fellow constituent.
Okay, I don't know. Mondi Ben. Benson Maundu tuning in from Mombasa this morning. Charity is tuning in from Nakuru. And somebody is tuned in from Kampala.
All right.
Somebody, yeah? Right.
Somebody, good morning.
We welcome you, somebody.
Okay, Oyawa is tuned in from Rongo University, and Jorogecha says, good morning, guys. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. City, Friday's proverb.
You mean today's proverb? All right. This is what the sparrow had to say. And I'm not referring to Mighty Sparrow, the Calypso maestro. I'm talking about a sparrow, the bird. Okay? The sparrow said that since the hunter has learned to shoot without missing, it has equally learned to fly without perching.
Ah. Okay. Since the hunter has learned to shoot without missing, the sparrow has learned to fly without perching.
Yes.
Ah. Okay.
You've got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't know. Tajua hajui. Tajua hajui.
Yes.
Okay, let's look at the headlines.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, that okay was accompanied by a deep sigh.
There's a lot.
Okay.
So, there's a lot happening. Apparently, according to the Standard, a sense of urgency has hit Raila's camp. So let's just give a few minutes into this politics.
Yes.
18 months dash. As the clock ticks towards next year's elections, a growing number of party leaders feel ODM must ramp up its activities to solidify support and fend off opponents. And now, Raila and his Orange Party machinery are getting their ducks in a row for the ultimate prize. According to ODM chairman John Baddy, we have been saying consistently that it was too early for 2022 campaigns, but the right time has now come. Because the elections are about 18 months away. As we continue supporting the proposed reforms, we have to prepare as a party for the next election. Okay, so, things are heating up, hotting up, as they say. And some of the other interesting thing that they say now is that through its Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, ODM Wednesday said it had invited those interested in seeking the presidency to make their bids and would place an advert on the same in the daily papers by Saturday.
Yep.
Repeat that again.
Good use of their money.
Edwin Sifuna said Wednesday that it had invited those interested in seeking the presidency to make
within
their
ODM.
bids. Yes. As candidates.
ODM's ticket.
ODM's ticket. As candidates
For
on
president.
ODM's ticket for the presidential.
Of Kenya.
We're
Yes.
having ODM primaries. Like the Democratic primaries.
Carry on.
So, it also came after a meeting of the party's powerful Central Management Committee, where sources indicate that there was a feeling among some members that their opponents had hit the ground running while they were lagging behind in preparing themselves for the 2022 race. So they decided, come on, guys, let's get this caboose moving. Deputy President William Ruto, ODM's party main challenger, has hit the campaign trail vigorously, billing the next presidential election around the hustlers versus dynasty narrative. ODM leader Raila Odinga is widely perceived to be Ruto's main challenger, surprise, surprise, but is yet to officially declare that he will be on the ballot. There's supposedly some fears in ODM, and these are that rivals have hit the ground running while ODM lags behind. President Kenyatta may fail to rally his supporters to back Raila Odinga in the wake of a resurgent DP. Raila's delay in launching his race to State House could disadvantage him, and rivals making strong inroads in the coast, western and Kisii regions, which are ODM's strongholds. So these are supposedly fears, and this is what has said, you know what now, guys? We need to get this thing moving.
Get the show on the road, as they say.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think it would be a good thing to see them then getting organized, starting from wherever they want to start. Raila is continuing with the latest script, which has been taken up by everybody who's challenging the DP. He's gone out on the DP. So, for example, about the failed promises, he says, they said they would give every child a laptop within 6 months after getting elected. It's now 8 years, and the pupils who were to receive the laptops are finishing primary schools without even seeing the laptop. He was questioning why Ruto should be trusted to bring about the economic empowerment for women and youth, while he's been known not to keep his promises. So all these things that this man is going around telling you, he has not done it. So why should you believe him? He goes ahead to say, this whole hustler versus dynasty narrative, we are all workers. We have all come from poverty. I was in committee for 6 years, Shimolatewa for 2 years, Naivasha and Manyani, while Ruto was groveling to get the favor of the government. Then he calls himself a hustler. Yeah, so he's gone all out. And remember, we've seen the same. The Amani National Congress leader, Musalia Mudavadi, has gone out also saying, you see, right? Ruto is the deputy president in a Jubilee administration. It has let you down. He was speaking to the Central Kenya leaders. We have seen the same. Kalonzo Musyoka coming out to talk about Ruto. It's all guns now turned on this one man.
Good. It
The
means
sparrow should not perch.
but it adds. All they're doing is fueling a very serious media blitz and focusing the spotlight on Ruto.
On Ruto.
But remember, this isn't even negative as it would be supposed. There are those who will see the negativity. I'm looking at the positivity. Look at what was in our papers the other day. The county of Mombasa had an advert. Okay?
Yeah.
Mombasa County Consolidated Revolving Fund Youth-Led Organization Business Founding Program. In summary, the Mombasa County, that is His Excellency Governor Hassan Joho, has set in place a youth fund, revolving fund, over 100,000 shillings for individuals who meet certain criteria. All right? They must demonstrate the highest impact on employment and show financial stability. The shortlisted applicants will face a panel of judges. Membership must be 5 to 10 people in that youth group. And you qualify for that loan of 100,000 shillings.
All right.
This isn't going to be the last youth program we are going to see. What Ruto has done What His Excellency, the Deputy President of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, has done.
PhD.
Let me stop referring to him as Ruto as though he's my clansman, okay? And
As though
my
he's
neighbor
still that
at
boy who's selling
Ruto.
chicken
No.
somewhere.
His Excellency, the Deputy President of Kenya, he has started a program that is guaranteed to have people who might be opposed to him scrambling to do something equal or even better. And you know who the beneficiaries will be? The youth.
Yeah, there'll be beneficiaries, but I don't see this being any different from any campaign season. Ask me why. I'll answer.
Okay, Eric, why?
Oh, what?
And I
Ask me
will
why
answer.
and I will answer.
So, look, because Ruto has gone around talking about wheelbarrows, empowering the youth, inviting them to Karen, giving them, this business startup projects. What is it that you are doing? You think you are a very good seamstress? Chukua sharahani. You want to do business? Here is a mkokoteni. Here is a wheelbarrow. Here is whatever you need. We have also seen the president and his brother, Raila, in Kisii, having a meeting with boda people and giving them money. We have seen the same. Now, Joho has launched this. What is this? What's different between this and what we see all the time?
This one is structured. The others are not structured.
Really?
No, they're not. Giving
If you
people
go around the country and you find that boda guys have been called by the governor and they've been built for a shed, they've also been told you can access money here. They're young.
That's a one-off.
Yeah.
Because
Women have been given chicken.
one-off.
This 100,000 is a one-off as well.
No, it isn't a one-off. A revolving fund means that there is a way in which you will be given the money, there's a way in which you repay the money,
Right.
and there's a way in which more and more and more people can access it.
Right.
You give it to one group,
Right.
all right?
They repay, you
if
give
they
it
are
to
doing
others.
this, then they should have stated it. You see, I'm mentioning this because they've given details of what they're doing.
Yes.
The others, all I have read and heard about is that they went and gave. End of that story. So, from what I have read and from what I have heard, it was a one-off and that's it.
So the youth fund is a revolving fund. Youth Enterprise Development Fund. There was the other one. What was it called? The other one for the youth and women. Because we did not have a runoff second election in 2013, that money was put into some new fund
Yeah, there
called
was a
something.
fund. Yeah.
There was that. This women who were given chicken, you're supposed to, that chicken, give the eggs to your neighbor. Something like that. Cows, the same. Given calves, that calf will become a cow. That cow will calf. They give the calf to the neighbor. These projects are just because it's been called a revolving fund with 18 years to the end of a tenure of this governor. How?
Eric, we have had these programs and these projects for as long as one can remember. And when you mentioned the cows and the calves and so forth, I know these programs have been there because I've witnessed them being set in place, okay? Live. Now,
With your eyes.
personal
Give me.
eyes,
Wait.
personal, not
Give it.
anyone else's,
Yes.
seeing on my behalf, I saw them myself, okay? Now, all I am saying if there's a resurgence of these projects, remember what the national government had put in place. One asked many questions about it.
Yeah.
The thing that stands out about the youth fund is that it was plundered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what stands out. So any good that may have come out from it was swallowed in whatever came out as being negative. Now, I am saying that there seems to be a resurgence of focusing on the youth. That's all I am saying. That people are now coming out, and they're coming out with programs. I have not said what I should have said at the tail end, and that is, let's wait and see how it works
How
out.
it works out this time.
Yes.
How different this one will be.
Yes, because the plan is good.
Sonko
Let's-
going round, giving people, youth come together. You want to start a car wash, I'll support you. This car wash, then we'll employ more people. Napatia vijana nafasi za ajira.
But those car wash things, Eric, those car wash things worked.
They did. For a while.
No, they worked. No jokes, they worked. They actually worked. And even the issue of guys getting together and buying a matatu, they worked. They're not things that didn't work. All I'm saying is, if someone has begun a project that has spurred other people to do things that ordinarily they wouldn't have thought to do, I'm saying the net beneficiaries, youth.
Youth.
Yes. That's all I'm
Sisi
saying.
hatutaki nafasi za ajira. 27 minutes to 7. Let's take a look at traffic.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko anaenda huku na huku.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your
Hey,
day.
let's see what's building up this Friday morning. We did see a little bit of movement right there on Mombasa Road, Cabanas. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a shootout on that area last night and then going into early this morning, and that held up something at police on that road this morning, but that seems to have been cleared away. But then traffic is building up right around the SGR, moving on towards Cabanas and then out towards General Motors this morning, so that's a bit slow, but nothing too crazy at the moment. We have some outbound traffic coming out of Westlands past Kangemi there. It is Friday, so expect people to be moving out. Traffic is also building up on Thika Road around the NYS. It's moving slowly up from Utali towards Muthaiga, but let's see what it looks like this Friday. One thing that we must make sure is that we do keep safe. Folks using the Northern Bypass are asked to be extremely careful this morning. Parts of that bridge look like a bit dodgy, so please be careful in that area. So Western's moving out. Limuru Road coming into town also is building up. As you get towards the flyover, you can use Wangari Maathai and then out into the CBD. Okay, let's take a look at what it looks like in a short while, but for now it looks like things are building up so slowly. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Also text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Right, 24 minutes to 7 o'clock. The verification of 1.3 million signatures clears way for referendum bill. The verified signatures in support of this bill have surpassed the required 1 million mark, according to IEBC, which posted them on its website yesterday. A list of 1.33 million verified signatures, suggesting the bill was now destined to the 47 county assemblies for debate before the country can go for the planned referendum. At the same time, the High Court has declined to stop ongoing the verification exercise. The court also set 17th of March, 18th and the 19th to hear 7 cases challenging the bid to amend the 2010 Constitution Initiative, and directed the cases be fully heard and settled on those 3 days, 17th, 18th, 19th. Anybody who wants to challenge the BBI referendum drive, kujani kotini hiyo time. Kenya National Union of Nurses had urged Justice Joel Ngoge, George Odunga, Jairus Nga, Janet Mulwa, and Chacha Mwita to intervene, claiming public money would be used in vain. The judges noted that application would eat into so much time, which ought to be utilized to settle the case. So this is what Justice Joel Ngoge said in his ruling. When your house is burning, you don't go running after rats. He was telling the lawyers to illustrate that the court ought to determine the case either way for the country to move forward. Basically, this is where we are at. We'll be having this conversation about the BBI in the next hour with the ICJ Kenya. So, watch it.
There's something I've read here which I actually can't understand.
Right.
This is page 6 of the Star, and it's the same story that you've mentioned. But their headline is, uproar as IBC asks Kenyan to verify signatures supporting the BBI. And it is being said that MPs Amola and Kioni allege sabotage, saying the move will cause unnecessary antagonism. I don't understand.
Well, what are they saying?
Well,
those MPs.
What they're saying is that their role is to do the verification. We caution the IBC not to be seen as inviting unnecessary antagonism. They must ensure that the thing they do are not laced with suspicion.
How?
That's what I don't understand.
What does the story say?
All right.
Are they saying
what the IBC says? Anyone who has been captured, you've read it, all right? Now, IBC asked aggrieved signatories to submit the reservations by email or hand delivery by Monday close of business. Okay. However, Rarieda MP Otiende Amolo and his Nicaragua counterpart Jeremiah Kioni questioned the decision. Okay. The lawmakers, who are leaders of key House committees on the referendum process, said the commission was acting in a manner that invites unnecessary antagonism. I don't understand.
One is the chair of the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee.
Yes.
The other one is a member of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee.
Yes.
Sasa.
I don't
Otiende
understand.
Amolo is the one of the drafters, one who worked in drafting this. Anyway, point is, IBC sits through this, and then it says, these are the signatures that we have, and then it publishes them and says, guys, verify. Public participation. Is this not a requirement of the law?
That's why I'm puzzled. I'm genuinely puzzled, because I thought this is, in my mind, I'm saying, it's a good move, so that there are no issues afterwards. Let people verify and see whether the truth is.
Yeah, if anybody finds their name there,
Yes.
they feel that I did not participate in this, or I'm not party to this.
And the background from which I garner this view was even when it came to voting. The same IBC would invite you to come and verify, go to your voting station and verify whether your signature, your name, or what your details are correct.
Yep.
And they would say, come with your ID. So I thought it's the same thing. Maybe I misunderstand.
I don't.
They're also claiming that this is going to drag the process. I don't see how.
How it would drag the process.
Well, let me tell you what they have said. The more they do this, the more they give everyone a good reason to remove them. There's something else happening here that I don't understand.
Yeah, there's something else. You know, under the covers, it looks like something else is
It's
going
like
on.
there's
Something cooking.
Yeah.
Yes, or it was agreed upon, you pass this thing quickly and then we move on.
Yes.
Just do quickly, so that we can.
And then something happens and they say, guys, come and verify. So is it that there's something that people do not want to verify? Or is
IBC had actually even said this from the very onset. They had said, this is what we're going to do.
They
We'll
had.
have this process, though there'll be this stage number one. Stage number one will just be looking at, do you have signature? Stage number 2 is now checking what you have here versus what you have in your database. Stage number 3 will be opening it up to the public. This that said.
I don't understand. However,
Neither do I.
I think it's one of those situations, one of those things that I think only time.
It's a wait and see.
Yes, this one is a definite. This one is a genuine wait and see.
Yeah.
Is that Friday phrase? Okay, so the union now, and we're talking about the teachers' union, wants the TSC bosses jailed for disobeying court.
Okay.
A
Okay.
teachers' union has moved to court seeking to have the top Teacher Service Commission officials punished for disobeying court orders in a fresh onslaught likely to open new legal battles between the two bodies. This fight is still not over. In its application in the Employment and Labour Relations Court, the Kenya National Union of Teachers wants the TSC Chief Executive Officer Nancy Macharia and the Commission Chairperson jailed for 6 months. TSC Chairperson Lydia Nzomo retired in November last year after her term expired. Mubarak Tahir is the acting chairperson. The union says the officials snubbed orders barring them from implementing a circular on transfers, appraisals, promotions, training, and union membership. It also states that the TSC defied orders that required it to shelve career progression guidelines issued in 2018 and that has ignored reminders that the courts have not been set aside. So the fight is now being taken to court.
Okay. Another case that has gone to court. The president launched a project sometime in early December last year, along Agwins-Kothek Road and the junction of Agwins-Kothek Road and Chaka Road. This is a land that is owned by the LAP Trust, the local, it's called what? Local Authority Pension Trusts. So they want to put up a building there that is going to be 50-something stories tall, 50-story high, and it's going to be called the Ugatuzi Towers, which will serve as the headquarters of the Council of Governors. It will also be the county satellite offices, county assemblies forum offices, Ministry of Devolution, and related state agencies, and all. Now, county government employees are seeking to stop the construction of the multi-billion shilling building in Nairobi, saying the Council of Governors has taken over their building without their authority and no. So they're saying, no, this land is, the property is registered under the County Pension Fund, managed by the Board of Trustees of the Local Authority Pension Trust. And now they are wondering how the Council of Governors comes in and becomes the ones who are running this whole story. One of those. Meanwhile, in Nairobi, the NMS has recruited 600 nurses as it prepares to open the 4 hospitals. Remember the project that they've been doing on the health facilities? According to Josephine Bai, the NMS Director for Health Services, the construction of the 4 hospitals in Utheru, Kiamaiko, Ushirika, and Soweto Kayole is complete and will be opened next week. The newly recruited health professionals will be deployed to meet the demands of healthcare services in Nairobi, and most of the hospitals are near completion, according to her. And she says others will be opened later in
under
the year.
a year, no?
Yeah, in a couple of months.
Yeah, in just a few months it was completed. It's just interesting that
Let's see them.
Once you put let's see what the hospitals actually look like. But in the principle of it is that once you put your mind to something and put the resources towards it, are serious about the process, I guess some great things can actually get done.
Yep. So those 4 will be ready. Remember, the president said 17 new health facilities will be built in Nairobi.
So 4
in
down,
6
13
months.
to go.
Yes. Okay. I think it's a good thing. The next thing that the president should also think about is schools. Because health facilities, and it's true, if you think about the health facilities that we have, the public health facilities we have in the county of Nairobi, few. The last count I had was actually around 17 health facilities serving the whole of Nairobi. Those clinics and dispensaries. And then now this is the local level before you go to Kenyatta and Mama Lucy and Pumwani. If you increase those, then you're basically serving more people. Now think about schools. When's the last time a public school was actually built in Nairobi that serves all the way from entry level to standard 8 or even to Form 4?
It's a good question that you ask. And the same question must be asked of the county government.
Yep.
Sure.
Because you're talking about, health and education.
And population keeps increasing.
Population shoots up.
But remember, one of the things that seems to have been the position the government has taken, they have unofficially accepted that private schools are a partnership enterprise. So as there are needs, the needs have been met by private schools. It's people who've put up private schools. Remember, in a time gone by, it was communities putting up schools. We call them Harambee schools. And then at some point or the other, the government taking over. It was a process. They assisted them. Then they eventually took over and ran them. But this process of the government actually building a school, Actually, you mentioned it and I'm thinking, I can't remember.
You can't remember the last time you saw a new school coming up.
Or even a new
Government
hospital.
project.
Or a new hospital for that matter. Though, actually, wait. In the rural areas, some of the areas I've worked in, I saw health facilities coming up from scratch. Yes, I also saw health facilities being expanded.
Right.
Something which was like a mere dispensary becoming a health center.
Especially in the counties, you'll see very many health facilities have actually come up
Yes.
in the last 8 or so years.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying that should be matched with also education facilities.
Indeed. Indeed.
When you say public, everything should be public. Public transport, we don't have public transport.
No, in this country, no.
Public
this is not a public
education,
transport
we only have public education that was there, started a long time ago. Public health, same issues. 13 minutes to 7, let's take this break and then we look at other headlines. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
What are you?
94.4
now that
Spice
China has
FM.
given Kenya some debt relief, the National Treasury have decided, all right, we can send some of this money to counties. And Yatani now has sent 24 billion to counties. Now that, there's been some debt relief from the Asian nation.
Right.
So money is part of the 27 billion that was meant to be paid to the Asian nation in 6 months. So the National Treasury has disbursed 24.6 billion to counties, reducing its 2-month arrears that had threatened to cripple operations of the devolved units, right? So there was that complaint that, look, even as we're going on strike, if we don't get something. In a statement yesterday, National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani said the cash belonging to the counties at the Central Bank of Kenya stands at 61 billion shillings, with the additional funds expected to be released in due course. Due course, of course, will be explained in due course. It's our hope that county governments will prioritize the settlement of pending bills to suppliers as well as other statutory dues to enable concerned institutions discharge their mandates effectively. So it comes a day after China agreed to give Kenya a debt repayment holiday for loans valued at 27 billion shillings that were due between January and June. The freed up cash will go towards offsetting other spending obligations, including disbursement to counties. And Yatani, in an interview with us, this is what he said when he was with us on that particular day. So China... besides China, Kenya has also received debt repayment relief from 10 countries under the Paris Club, and the country has been able to save 32.9 billion
Some
shillings.
kidogo money here and there. Of course,
gonna
Yatani was
help
going to brag about this
with
and
the
say, now you see,
adverse
we have
effects
sent
of the
money. Now,
pandemic.
counties, can you make sure that you do everything? You are still like 3 or
You're
4
in
months
arrears.
in arrears.
So even this money is
Make
going
it sound
to,
like they're giving them
not-
next year's money.
No, it's not up to date. Even this money that has been sent, this 24 billion, we're talking about, if you remember the dates that we were given very clearly, we're then now talking about money for October, November, which is now what they're going to be able to sort out. You've heard what he said, in due course, and it's actually interesting because it's in quotes. In due course for December, January, and then moving forward, that will be given.
It will be
in
given
due
to
course.
you.
So
It's like someone who owes you money. They owe you 1,000 shillings. They pay you 100 bob. They're like, no,
I'll bring.
we
I've paid, I've
sorted.
started
You see, I have paid you now. You can pay rent. You can take your children to school. You can do all those things, Bana. I've given you money. In fact, he even calls your landlord. I owed him. I've paid.
Ask him.
Ask him. I have records. I can even send you the M-Pesa code. Man still owes you 90% of what you...
So can I give you some numbers? I think it's interesting to look at these numbers. 166 billion. Do you like that number, CT? What Kenya Revenue Authority collected in December 2020, surpassing its target for the first time
Ever.
during the COVID-19 period. 560 billion. What the government borrowed in the first 5 months of the current financial year.
Right.
370 billion. Allocation to counties and recommendations published by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. So that's just interesting to see that, KRA is, trying, but then, all of that is mopped up, going towards payment of debt. And then, the other half of it going to the operationalization
Thank you.
of the country.
Okay. Yes, sawa. Business Daily.
Union fights plans for governor's city towers.
That's the one, eh?
This is the one. This is the one. Okay. The Kenya County Government's Workers Union has challenged the planned constructions of the multi-billion shilling Ugatuzi Towers, a project spearheaded by the Council of Governors. Now, this is interesting. The union's General Secretary, Robert Duba, wants the High Court to stop the Board of Trustees of the Local Authorities Pension Trust, Lab Trust, and County Pension Fund, CPF, from committing any funds for construction to set in Hurlingham, Nairobi. Now, why I picked this particular story is this. I fail to understand. There's some logic that escapes me. What COVID has shown is that office spaces and the demand for it have diminished, not are diminishing, have diminished. And the trajectory seems to point to it diminishing further. Why then would you want to put up another office block? Is that the best way of actually utilizing the funds at your disposal, which is actually meant for pensions of workers? Is it really the best way to go around utilizing these funds? What's the logic
Maybe
behind
the
it?
argument would be, CT, what we are seeing, temporary as it may be, does it actually point to a point where the need for real estate, commercial real estate, will diminish?
It will. And I'm going to explain why it will diminish.
Okay. Explain.
When you have a situation where people have understood that work involves you leaving your home and going to a space we call an office to work, we've had a year in which people have been carrying on their business, and that need to actually move and go to the office has not arisen. So any business owner or practitioner will balance and ask, am I getting the work done? Are things happening the way I want them? And if the answer is yes, then the office space that you occupy is an expense. And not occupying it means you've already reduced your expenses in getting the output that you require. As a business person, are you going to go back to that expense when you've already proven that you don't need that expense to have the outcome that you require?
Yeah, I mean,
Are you going to do that?
I think what we are seeing happening is there is indeed a reorganization. So it's not a complete exit from office space.
It isn't.
It is a shrinking of the demand for office space.
Yeah.
So as a company, you see, all right, so people can work on rotation. I'll maintain physical presence somewhere where people can come in on rotation. There'll be meetings that require to be held in person. There will be people who need to come into an office and work. So instead of having X number of square feet, I'm reducing that to X minus 1,000 square feet, so that the same number of workers can be coming in on rotation. Others now are moving into the flexible office spaces. So you have this one office space that is then being shared by various other organizations. So there's still going to be some space for real estate, but just maybe going to be different. However, consider that the Council of Governors right now is paying rent somewhere in Nairobi as its headquarters.
Yes. We then bring in...
So here now is the economies of, do we want to continue paying rent, or do we want to move
have
into
our own?
And then when we are there, can we then also lease to others who
You see,
may
the
require
discussion of opportunity cost comes in, okay? You put up a building. First of all, you needed to have bought this particular piece of land on which, unless you're telling us that you owned it before.
They owned it.
Okay?
It's been there for a while.
They bought it. The
Yeah,
Council of they bought it.
This land, the Lab Trust has owned this land for a while, for years.
No, Lab Trust may have owned it. But remember, where the discussion is the participation of the Council of Governors, because they're the ones who are pushing this particular agenda.
Yep.
And the Workers' Union is saying, we do not want this thing to actually happen. I am saying this, that if you look at the decreased demand for office space, to argue your case that this is a viable project, one would have to demonstrate that indeed the demand is going to increase. If even residential areas, residential places, the demand for so-called high-end residential places has gone down. Why? Well, because one, the demand has gone down. It's quite simple. And the reasons why the demand has gone down. So you suddenly think that an office space where someone can work, and it has been proven that one doesn't need to go to that space to work to be able to do what they were doing before. Why would a business person want to incur further expenses to do what they have realized they can do without that expenditure? That's all I'm saying.
Valid question.
It's a valid question, and I think it's one of those others as a wait and see. I don't think there's enough or sufficient evidence that because of what has happened in the last 1 year, then this sector is basically collapsing.
The other, it's not collapsing. It's just that it has to reorganize itself.
Yep.
It can't function as it did before. The other complaint...
The offering would be different,
Yes.
but the buildings will still be there.
Remember, for the longest time now, we've had an upsurge of a certain kind of business where you have office space you can rent by the day, even by the hour.
Yes.
Okay? That business has been growing, meaning you don't really need... All you need is a plan as to when you might use it.
That's exactly it, City. You see, that is a building. Now, how you offer the building is what will change. Whether you want to offer the building as X number of square feet, come in, kit it for yourself, or whether you want to offer the building as a flexible office where somebody can come in and use and it can be shared. The thing is, you as a landlord, you have put up the building.
Actually,
now, what you are offering as a product...
You see, it gets to the heart of the matter because the other complaint that the union has, no public participation. The details that you're now bringing up are details that would have been brought up if they had argued this thing.
If they have been told and all.
Yes, but that is clear. They're saying, but we have no clue what it is. All we know that you want to put up a building.
Let's hear the response. The matter has gone to court. There'll be response on this particular one, okay? As we go to the top of the hour, so there's this whole issue of the minimum tax on informal businesses, the 1%. KEPSA says, good, government, go ahead and implement this one. Everybody's up in arms, but KEPSA chairman Nick Nesbitt says, the constant conversation is to expand the tax net, and the minimum tax is one of the ways to do this. He was speaking during the launch of a report by the East African Business Council on the state of the East African economy. The tax on gross turnover came into effect this month and is payable on 3-month installments. KEPSA says the tax could assist the KRA bring the informal sector into the tax bracket.
Yes, but
KEPSA.
But what does it do to the business? Because these individuals still pay indirect taxes. Why? Because they have the money to pay. If you tax them from source, are you encouraging the business or are you diminishing it?
Yep. This one. Anyway, let's wait and see. So we'll have a conversation on BBI in the coming hour. We'll be speaking to International Commission of Juries Kenya chapter. They have released a statement. We know that they even released a statement. They have even sought to understand how this entire handshake process is being conducted, is being financed, who's financing it, from whose pocket, who authorized it. Anyway, we'll be speaking to the ICJ Kenya chairman shortly. And then later we'll also be speaking to constitutional lawyer Bobby Mkangi, who was among the experts who sat in the committee of experts on constitution review and gave us the Constitution of Kenya 2010. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Keep it right here. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, let's
Traffic.
Outbound, coming from Westlands, there's some traffic that's building up there, headed in that direction. It is Friday, so we expect the mass exodus out of the city as usual. It's also slow on Thika Road this morning. It starts at Allsops, heading very slowly towards the CBD, but at least not at a bumper-to-bumper situation just yet. Red lights everywhere. It's still dark in some parts. Everybody's headed into the city, at least from this area. Coming off Mombasa Road, it's slow again, right around the SGR, then moving towards General Motors. Slow, but then it will pick up some without any issues. Jogo Road, coming out towards Landis, is looking good. Moving. We don't have any stops so far. Outering, it will be one to watch today, and let's see if that morning drama would end today. Well, let's keep an eye on things and see how they go. The Eastern and Southern bypass is looking pretty good, as is Red Hill bypass coming out of Westlands. Longer routes, but not jam-packed. Talk to us if you need to. Spice of MKE on Twitter. You can also text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation
Happy Friday,
Room.
everybody, and thank you very much for tuning in to The Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM. We are live streaming online, and we are now live on KTN Home for the next 2 hours. CT Muga, as we begin the hour, what did the sparrows say?
Well, let me take some literary license here and give the impression and understand what birds can say. The sparrow said, and remember, I was specific, not mighty sparrow, the calypso maestro, okay? The sparrow said that since the hunter has learned to shoot without missing, it has equally learned to fly without perching.
Okay. It's called just adapting. Adapt. So this one has learned to shoot without missing. So now I will fly without patching. Okay. Let us see how far you can fly, Mr. Sparrow. So let's talk about the BBI, okay? Now, since this hunter has learned to shoot, the Building Bridges initiative came after the handshake, March 2008, between two brothers. One of them is the president, the other one is the leader of the opposition, his biggest challenger in the just concluded general election. After that, there's all these questions of, so now, okay, so these two gentlemen shook hands. So what is supposed to happen next? And they said, all right, so we are now launching what we call the Building Bridges Initiative, so we can bring peace and harmony to the country. And they handpicked a group of men and women and told them, go around the country, listen to the people, and then come up with a report on what the people want and what the solution would be to our problems. They were given a 9-point agenda. We know how that has gone. There was BBI. One report came out. It was supposed to have gone through validation. It went through some political process of several rallies. There was BBI 2, which was launched again last year. And then there was all these questions of, so now surely this proposal that you are saying here, that you want even to take us to a constitutional referendum, we didn't agree on this. We don't think this would work. Then there's been what we call now BBI 3, BBI 3A, 3B. Is there an ombudsman in the judiciary? Is it to be appointed by the president? No. Is it what? All those things have happened in a process called the BBI. Now we're at a point where the secretariat that was established to go through the country and collect signatures in support of a people-led initiative on constitutional review took them to the IEBC. The IEBC says, we've gone through this, we've established the names given to us, and the details given to us are of voters who are in our register, and we've published them on our website. So it's there, published on the IEBC website, and they have to ask the public, now go and verify that this name that is there is actually yours, and you consent to being one of those who have said that you support the referendum. Several civil society organizations throughout this process have asked questions. Several political leaders have asked questions. Several professional bodies have asked questions about this. And we are at a point where all those are coming together to say, okay, so do we really have to amend the constitution at this point? Going by what the president says, we are in a constitutional moment. One of those organizations is the International Commission of Jurists Kenya chapter. We hosted the chairman at some point last year after the report was released, and he was raising the questions of, so throughout this process, let's look at how it has been financed. But this new statement by the ICJ Kenya is not even about the financing. It's about looking at the details of the Constitution Amendment Bill itself and the report itself. And now we have the President, Mr. Kevin Mugeni, who joins us on the line. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this time around.
So the ICJ Kenya has released a statement, and it says, look, from where we sit, having looked at this document, we say no to a constitutional amendment at this point. Why?
This has been a process. We have discussed variously about the contents of this document. From the inception, we have had discussions with the various parties, our members, constitutional experts, human rights players, and several actors in the justice sector. We have asked several questions about both the process and the outcomes that are intended to be achieved from this, deliberations that we have had. It is acknowledged that at the point, the country required certain interventions. But those interventions, we have always said, are already contained in the constitution that we already have. But the actors refused to confirm that those interventions could have been achieved without necessarily going to amend the constitution. So the biggest questions we have posed: how do you intend to amend a document you have failed to implement? And that is a big question on the table.
Mm-hmm.
There are very many issues that arise. So when you say you want to amend the constitution to bring a better document, and the one that is existing, you have failed to implement. So what gives you the thought that we are able to do or to implement the subsequent one that is coming after this amendment has been done? So we are saying this: show the public goodwill that this item the document you're bringing, you are likely to do better than that, just doing what we call a cosmetic and public relation exercise.
Mm.
What you have said is that 95% of BBI does not require any constitutional amendment. It requires to be implemented through simple executive orders and legislative interventions that do not require a constitutional amendment. So the first issue that arises: these things that do not require constitutional amendment, have you done them? Do you intend to do them? What is the time frame for you to do that?
Mm-hmm.
So that has not been done, because all these things just require a simple intervention that does not require this referendum. So we're asking, if you are saying you want to give the counties 35%, can you do that immediately? So we see there is goodwill. But what we are saying is that deliberately they have refused to implement, so that you have a carrot and stick situation. If you agree to the referendum, then we'll give you these other things.
Right.
That's the carrot and stick situation we have on the table.
Kelvin, why now? Many have said that, even coming from, the heavy supporters of the BBI, is that, the train has left the station. So why do we hear from the ICJ at this point, making these recommendations that many would have made before, or that, could have come earlier? Why now, when it seems as though these things are already going through?
I don't think it is correct to say that we have made these statements now, because we have given our recommendations, our objections, our ideas on stage-to-stage basis.
Mm-hmm.
It is not that we have just woken up. Some people assume that ICJ has woken up and said this is what it is. We raised the questions on the process at the very inception. We sought to know what the financing and the process of undertaking this process was.
Mm-hmm.
We never got responses. And I believe that any party with goodwill ought to have come up with that openness at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, nobody intended to respond, because it was shrouded in secrecy. And they bulldozed their way and proceeded with that. When the first process of recommendation came up, we also sought interventions on the parties involved and how that process will be undertaken. We never got responses to that. And of course, we made our position known. When the first report came out, we pointed out the flaws that were in that first position. And we never got any responses to that. The first BBI document that was made public, we also voiced our concerns on the very specific contents, especially in the intended constitution amendments. Few were taken in, especially in respect to the Judiciary Ombudsman, because initially the Ombudsman was supposed to report to the executive. They amended that, and it reports now to the Judicial Service Commission and Parliament. But what we have voiced more concerning the Ombudsman is how you're going to have two constitutional bodies that are going to handle the same sector in the government. Then we'll have this, pull and shove situation that we have in the Ministry of Lands, the Executive and the National Land Commission, which ended up in the Supreme Court severally to give, interpretations as to what or the mandate of each of them. So we don't want to have that repeat with respect to the judiciary. And we have voiced this, and we have said before that accountability is a requirement, and we want it in the judiciary. But we don't want to do it while eroding the gains that we already have in the judiciary, because access to justice is one of very, very pillars of democracy, and that's what you're saying. Let us have a situation that does not bring any controversy, that will remove all the gains that we have so far earned, in the last 10 years. That the civil society has fought so hard to ensure that they are embedded in this constitutional order that we have, so we don't work backwards. Let's work forward, ensuring that the gains we have, we strengthen them rather than eroding that process.
Kevin, I think please go on.
Yeah, what I was saying is that the bulk of the intended amendments, as you look at them, are really directed towards the executive and the way we need to have the executive look in the coming days, and the composition of the legislature, and more so, going by what Judge Maraga had advised the president to dissolve Parliament, because they have failed to meet the 2/3 gender threshold in the parliaments that have been there since the 2010 Constitution. So what we're saying is that you can't amend so that you're trying to bring in through the window what you have failed to do in the last 10 years. We've seen that there was no goodwill to implement the 2/3 gender rule. So how are we sure that in this new constitutional order, we're going to implement what you have failed to do?
Kelvin, I like what you're saying, and the pushback that the ICJ is giving is actually very ideal and appropriate. But let me ask this question. Is there a minimum threshold that any government must have before they can push for an amendment of the Constitution?
There is no question about a minimum threshold. We look at what we really have and look at how the process is being undertaken and whether we really have that push to take it further. Because when you talk about a minimum threshold, we have had a series of webinars, and this is, when you say that ICJ has not been involved in this process of reviewing and looking at the gains we have had in the last 10 years, we had several webinars running up towards the 27th August 2020 in what we call the Katiba at 10 series. We brought very, very many experts, including those both supportive and those opposed to, and various views were given. And what we came up with, and the most important thing that came out from the various discussions we had, is that we have failed to implement the Constitution because of certain outcomes that have not come from the executive. For example, you introduced that the public needs to have this Article 11A, which gives us the right to respond in certain ways as citizens. And we ask ourselves, if the executive does not comply with court orders, as it is right now, what is the new constitution that can compel them to obey those orders? As a minimum threshold, have we brought that issue in the government that they can obey processes that are already in place? So that's what we fear, that if there is no goodwill from the existing processes, how do you intend us to have goodwill in the subsequent one that are intended to come? So we're saying, tekeleza katiba sasa. Then we talk about amending what is not workable.
After you've seen.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Mr. Mogeni, I have to ask you again, but perhaps let me rephrase this question. If you were to say tekeleza katiba, fulfill the dictates of the katiba, and then talk about the changes, I have to ask, is there any country on the planet that has actually fulfilled the dictates of all that it has in its constitution before making amendments?
Most countries we work constitutions in terms of how it works and how it does not work. Because when you look at situations that are not workable, amendments come in. You work amendments on situations that are not workable. We are asking ourselves, and we have repeated this, that you have not fully implemented it. You have failed to implement it. So you cannot say that we have set a threshold when we have not reached the minimum bar. So what we have done right now, and I think what we asked in our current constitutional situation is that we want to avoid the winner-take-it-all situation that happened in 2017, 2013, and the like, and also the issue that came up in 2007, 2008. That is the big elephant in the house.
Yep.
So what we ask ourselves, and the reason why I'll say this in the bedrock of what you have asked me as to whether there is a country that has fully implemented the constitution in the process, we ask ourselves, if the reason that we had the BBI, the handshake, is to bring together people and avoid the winner-take-it-all situation, what do we have in the intended amendments that can avoid that situation? So my question will be, does it resolve the crisis? I'll give an example. In the South African Constitution, parliamentary, or rather political parties, are given percentages in representation on the basis of the actual votes gained or gathered in the process towards elections. So that if we had that situation in Kenya, if ODM garnered 25 votes, Jubilee got 27 votes, so each will have 27 members and the other 25 votes.
Yep.
25 members. So, you are talking about proportional representation that will avoid a splintered, where people who have voted are not represented because they only got maybe a fraction of the votes, so they are not generally represented. So we look at a pattern like that, where representation becomes real and distributed to ensure that everybody's voice is heard. And when you hear 1 vote, 1 shilling, that is a similar scenario we are talking about. So if we are looking at a situation where we want every party to be represented, I'll ask the parties in the BBI to reconsider the documents they have set out right now, because if you talk about the president appointing a prime minister from the party with the majority, and the same party appoints cabinet ministers based on that position, then at the end of the day, we'll still have the current situation, because it does not address the question of representation, where it does not bring in
the
various
others.
interests.
So the winner still takes all.
Yeah, that we have said that.
But
And
hearing
it's not going to cure.
you go like that, Mr. Mogeni, goes into what exactly the proponents of the BBI are saying, that we need to amend the constitution. Because remember, even when the president speaks, he says one of the biggest things that is behind the push for this constitutional amendment is on that political front. Others are additionals, but the main thrust of this is that political front, how to address the peace and stability of the country, how to ensure there is that inclusivity, that everybody feels that they participate and they are represented. So then it means that whatever is in the current constitution does not address that, then there is need for us to think of something that would address that particular emerging need. Then isn't that to say that there is need for that BBI conversation to happen and a constitutional referendum?
We've had that conversation, and we have said that issues of representation are very paramount. The only question we ask, the document we so far have, does it address that situation? And I'm waiting, and we have had discussions with this. We have had various conversations, and the outcome is the same. There is no address onto the current lacuna that we have in the current constitution to address that issue of, be it tribal or economic or other vices that we have in the country today. So that position will persist irrespective of the amendment. So are we curing anything? So I go back to the same question and I pose it this. How are we going to have the inequalities in terms of representation that led to the hiccups that we had in 2017, leading to the parallel swearing in, or the issues that we had in 2007, 2008. And then we look at it this way. We have had, and it's a real situation. You cannot deny that this country sometimes is fractured around tribal lines. And this is a situation we have asked us, how can we cure this question for posterity?
How can we?
That's the question is. And I've said this. We cannot talk about rotation of presidents because that is ridiculous. It cannot work in Kenya. And neither are we going to have to address it by having this, what is called, coalition of tribes. And the only issue we could have had is to strengthen the political party process, which we have failed to do. And I'll ask you this. When we got the BBI, we got a handshake of two political parties. Let me not say two political parties. Two players in political parties. Now, the other players within the political process were not given audience. And when you talk about legalities, the persons involved in those political processes were not given audience. So was there justice within the political processes that we are trying to strengthen? And I'll say this, strengthen the political party processes so that we have rank and file. Like in the U.S., the Democrats and the Republicans have got very, very good strengthened mechanisms. When are we going to have that in Kenya? Because every political process, cycle that we have new political players, new political parties, and they keep on emerging every circle of the political life in the country. Which means what? We have instability in our political process every electoral cycle. How and when are we going to strengthen this? Because we had NAC, we had ODF, we had
PNU,
we had
NAC Kenya.
PNA, we had NAC Kenya. We have had these metamorphosizing political parties because we have failed to strengthen the political process in Kenya. And so long as that is not done, however many constitutional orders you have, you will never have a stable political process in the country. And the issue will remain, how do you strengthen the political process? We avoid the briefcase parties, tribal parties, and the breakaway parties because I do not agree on certain processes, because today the leader here is not good with me. tomorrow I want to be the leader of the other party.
But Mr. Mugeni, wouldn't you say that the very argument you're putting across, I like it, is this not part of the process of strengthening this very same thing that you're saying? Because we are now becoming aware of things we are not aware of. We are being treated to an understanding of the Constitution in ways we would never have understood it. So don't you think that this debate and everything around it is actually useful in strengthening our political processes?
But is that the intention?
Unintended circumstances.
It isn't unintended consequences, it's consequences. For instance, when you talk of an amendment, amendments arise, in my opinion, because something wasn't fully captured in the original document. So the amendment is supposed to rectify that.
I hear what you're saying, but maybe Calvin can talk about this, because what you're saying is that you want people to be more involved. You want people to be more involved. So now, with this debate and the way it's going in the back and forth, is that people inadvertently get involved by this discourse that we have. People get involved in the process. You don't lock people out. So it's a consequence of the manner in which this whole discourse is being carried out.
In fact, the ICJ may not recognize it, but they are helping this very process. The thing that they're hoping would happen is actually happening when they engage the government, when they engage political parties, when they engage the public with this discourse. The very thing that they're saying should happen is actually happening. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. So should we now not have a way of capturing all those things that are happening before we go to a referendum?
That is a different discussion.
I think when what you're saying should be looked from the fact that the intended outcomes must be looked in terms of where the lacuna is at the moment. And that's what we have failed to do.
Okay.
When you talk about the problems in this country, which are very political, you ask yourself, have we strengthened the political party process? And how do we ensure that we don't have this lacuna? And that is really the big elephant in the house, the political process. Because if today we decide that these political parties and these other parties are going to be in this particular way, and they agree, we'll have really little problems. But you see, when you see, like, even in the Third Way Alliance, somebody decided, no, this is my party. They kick out the party. So tomorrow you will hear somebody else saying, no, I don't have audience in
ODM.
In ODM. I'll go and form something else. Because we have failed to follow the dispute resolution mechanisms, because we don't care about that. How do we strengthen the political party processes in the Constitution? We embed them in the Constitution so that it is strengthened. Look at the register of political parties or that forum. It is not embedded in the Constitution. IEBC does not have enough powers to rein all this because it's also strangled financially.
Very many problems.
All those are there. But how can we address that? And we address them in the new Constitution, in the internal Constitution.
Okay.
Nothing comes out of that. Yeah.
Calvin Mugeni, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We've seen the statement from the ICJ Kenya. We'll be engaging you further and further as we move closer and closer to this, what seems to be the way we're heading, a constitutional referendum. I know that ICJ has said no to this, and you're saying tekeleza katiba sasa, that is, implement the 2010 constitution. We thank you very much for this and hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you, Eric, and all the others, and thanks for this.
Thank you very much, Calvin.
Thank you very much.
7:30, time for us to take a quick break, take a look at the weather and traffic. We'll be back shortly.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, looking at conditions in Nairobi this morning, we're at 17 degrees, 18 degrees now. Partly cloudy conditions. We'll see highs of 26. and lows of 16. Partly sunny in Nyeri at 12, highs of 23 and lows of 14. At 17 degrees in Nakuru, it's sunny this morning, 17, highs of 27 and lows of 14. 12 will be the low in Eldoret today, sunny currently and highs of 24. Highs of 29 in Kisumu today, 18 degrees and sunny at the moment, will only come down then later to lows of 19. Sunny conditions in Kakamega as well at 18 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Rain showers in Mombasa, 25, highs of 32 and lows of 24. Rain showers also in Malindi now, highs of 31 and lows of 25. We're looking at sunny conditions in Kampala at 18, highs of 26 and highs of 31 in Dar es Salaam, lows of 26. And it's also raining here. It's sunny in Johannesburg, however, at 15 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 16. Still continues to be hazy over Lagos at 23, highs of 34 and lows of 24. Light rain in Kinshasa as well, 31 the high and lows of 22.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your traffic.
So there's mad traffic on Mombasa Road from Lolongo inbound today, so quite the issue right around there. On Thika Road also very slow then around the Muthaiga corner. There is traffic that's joining from Kiambu Road combined with all that you see, and the Matatu is doing a normal madness thing on on Friday afternoon. It looks like it's even going to get worse than this Friday morning. Okay, so Wayaki Way outbound, unfortunately there was an accident that took place very early this morning. That compounds traffic moving out as well. Okay guys, it looks like it might be crazy in some parts. The Eastern Bypass, taking all that traffic that's coming off from Taj Mall and moving out in that direction as well, is slow. Jogo Road also moving well into Landis Road, into the CBD as well. Let's take a look in about half hour and see how this might have changed. It doesn't look too crazy, but some parts it actually does. Spice of MKE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
On Spice FM, on KTN Home and online, listening to the ICJ Kenya. So basically they have issues with the process of getting to where we are in terms of the Constitution Amendment Bill and also the substance of the bill itself. And saying, looking at the substance, what you're saying that you want to solve is not being addressed in this bill. Presently, our biggest problem is we have not implemented this Constitution to the letter. We haven't obeyed the letter and spirit of the current Constitution. So if there's no goodwill in the implementation, how can we guarantee ourselves of any goodwill in implementation of anything else that we change?
And I'm asking the question, it is good and it is idealistic to talk about completely ensuring that you have implemented the Constitution. It doesn't work that way. That's really what I'm saying. When amendments come into being, they come into being because in the process of implementation, it is seen that there were certain definitions that were not actually captured in the document.
In the process of implementation. The argument here is that that process of implementing the Constitution has just started from here. You are going to town, you've just got into the gate of Standard Group Center, and then you say, no, I need to change this.
And I'm saying that actually is in many ways not an entirely true statement.
Because there's jam at Nyayo Stadium roundabout. I'm going to change this. You have not even gotten.
Let me ask a different question. How long then must we wait for the implementation process?
Get to the highway.
How long
first.
have we been working with this Constitution? How many years have
10
we had
years.
it? Yeah. So what? 10 years is not good enough. So must we wait 30 years for us to be able to implement or to be able to amend it?
The point is, in those 10 years, should we not have implemented the Constitution?
There's certain things,
sufficiently?
There's certain things that should have
why
been
I
done.
asked.
It's not about time.
And then I asked the question.
It's about the threshold of implementing the Constitution.
Yes, and I'm asking, what is this minimum threshold? Because if we keep saying we haven't done enough on the Constitution, okay, this enough, what is it? What must we then do so that we get to the position where the amendment is now considered acceptable?
There are certain things that have come in terms of recommendations that are already in the Constitution. And so the question is, if you've come to this realization of these things that you want changed, which are already there, why weren't they done before? Why do you have to come and say, let's change this thing? Let's change this letter. The same recommendations that you've made are the same things that are existent in the documents already.
Give me an example.
So,
of
for
these
example,
things.
the ombudsman, the judiciary ombudsman.
Yes.
Okay, judiciary ombudsman is where the public should go and complain about what is not happening and working in the judiciary, right? Is there no such structure within the Judicial Service Commission? Has the Judicial Service Commission, for example, tried to implement a structure like that and it didn't work, and then you said, okay, let's now put it in the Constitution? That's the only way it can work.
Okay, that's one.
There was a move to try and change the Police Service Commission and the Independent Police Service Commission and all those. Is it born out of a need of you implemented the Constitution, you saw that you have actually gone through with the police reforms, you have brought the various arms of police services under one umbrella, the AP, the regular police, the GSU, all of them are reporting to this one command structure. This one command structure has been pushed and pushed to the very end, and you've seen there is something that is not working here. So now let's create a different commission altogether and put the police under that.
See,
is it born out of that?
You see, there are three arguments here that, from where I sit, there are three arguments that are here. You see, we're talking about a political process versus something that I could best refer to as the common good. I mean, the whole purpose of having a new constitution was to serve that purpose of the common good, so that everyone, without fear or favor, could benefit from it. That's why we even have a Bill of Rights. It's for that same purpose. But now you have decisions which are being made. Second argument comes in. Are we saying that the proponents of the BBI have not argued the case to anyone's satisfaction? That all they're doing is arguing about change, and yet not trying hard enough, one, by publishing enough of these documents, that document for people to read and understand, arguing out the case and presenting the reason as to why they want to make these changes. Third argument, that we are arguing about a constitutional process when actually what we're arguing about is a political process and the expediency with which they are seeking.
Yes.
So,
and unfortunately, that political process is now being brought into the supreme law of the land. I think that's where the issue comes in. If it was just a political conversation, so what is it that is ailing our politics? How can we use the existing laws to solve these problems, that challenges that we are facing in our politics? How can we amend or introduce new laws that would help us solve this particular problem? Okay, even after implementation of those new laws, we still require something bigger than that. Let's go to the supreme law. Is that what the conversation we're having? I don't think so. I think the people who are arguing against the Constitution Amendment Bill and the push for a referendum are feeling, number one, what you said, that those who are advocating for it are not advocating for it with proper justification as to why. Number two, it is coming from the executive that should have implemented the Constitution. So the question immediately comes, you should have implemented the Constitution. Have you? If it was coming from, remember when it was coming from Ekuru or court, there was no question of, but you have not implemented the Constitution. Because Ekuru had absolutely, it was citizen move. They are not the ones to implement the Constitution. Now, when it comes to people who are heading the executive, saying, let's amend this and the other, the question will obviously come.
So essentially, we now bring in the discussion of the suspicion that often meets political processes that are brought about by politicians, especially those who are in power.
It would look as though it was then a mechanism to usurp power at the highest level. Because what it looks like is that there's a certain element of change in power that you want to bring about that then becomes everlasting. But what you're going to do then is throw in all these elements, which you could have done without amending this constitution, without amending this document. But in order to maintain that power level that you're looking for, you throw in all these other things to make them look kind of concessionary. That's what it would be, the perception is.
So essentially, the people who have put forward this argument for the BBI didn't think this thing through very carefully, did they?
Not really.
Maybe not. They'll argue that they have. Let's bring in a constitutional lawyer, Bobby Mkangi. Bobby was a member of the Committee of Experts on Constitution Review, those that looked at the Boma's draft, all the other drafts, the Kilifi draft and everything else, and put out the harmonized draft constitution that led us to Constitution of Kenya 2010. Good morning, Bobby.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us online this morning. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
Bobby,
Sorry I couldn't come on Zoom. My connection is not very good.
Challenge is
Yeah.
you need a BBI, my friend.
But it does, Bobby. Feel welcome. We will listen to your Zoom voice and talk to your Zoom voice.
Bobby Bila Internet.
Yes.
Wow.
BBI.
Yes.
Bobby in a voice.
Excellent, BBI.
So, Bobby,
Yes.
you, of course, you've seen the whole journey towards where we've gotten today, where we are definitely going towards a constitutional referendum in coming months. The ICJ Kenya has released its statement. Various other organizations have released their statements. Various professionals, including yourself, have released statements for and against the constitutional amendment push. What is your main issue against the BBI?
My main issue against BBI is the fact that we want to undertake a significant alteration of a constitutional dispensation that we have not been faithful to, that we have not shown fidelity to, and I've gone ahead to blame the document, to blame the ink on paper for the shortcomings that we have occasioned in implementing this document, and then gone further to propose radical changes to the same document with the promise that with those changes, then the new ink on paper is what is going to deliver to Kenyans what they promised themselves and bequeathed to the future generations in 2010. So my focus and my voice joins and echoes those Kenyans who feel that we must show fidelity, faithfulness to the word that we put on paper in 2010. And then after we have done that, then we can say we can have a proper assessment of what we've been able to do, and then what we need to add on or subtract so that we can carry on with the journey. That's my main issue.
Bobby, I think at this point, help us to answer CT's main question. What is this threshold of how much you've implemented the Constitution before you start thinking of amending it? Is it how many years? Is it how many clauses of the Constitution have been implemented? What is it that you would say we'd use as a yardstick for saying we have implemented enough, now we can start amending?
I mean, there are rather obvious things, quite prominent, al fresco to Kenyans. When Kenyans clamored for a new constitution, and I'm sure you've heard, it is almost now a cliche, that this is one of the most protracted processes that we went through in achieving what we did in 2010. Some people say it goes back to the late 80s or early 90s. Sometimes I argue that it actually goes back to 1964, when the promise was broken and camps formed. Those who are against the dissolution or the emasculation of the independence constitution. I think that's where the divide started, with those who wanted to go back to the faithfulness of the Majimbo constitution that was at independence. And the movement came on, gathered traction and momentum in the early 90s, up to Yash Palgai-led process, and eventually what Kenyans helped us to realize in 2010. And they did that because of many reasons, and primarily so that they could improve their livelihoods, the material issues in their lives, because even when you assess the Constitution and look at the changes that Kenyans wanted in terms of the system of governance, with the introduction of devolution, with an expanded and comprehensive Bill of Rights, billed as one of the best in the world, with a proper public finance management framework, all these things Kenyans did so that at the end of the day, they could improve their well-being and that of future generations. But within the 10 years that we've implemented this document, Kenyans have observed the same things that they were clamoring to fight over. Issues to do with wanton corruption, issues to do with leadership that does not pay regard to the rule of law, that does not, that survives as if it is above the law, issues to do with, economic and financial decisions that have led to, inflationary, increments that affect what a Kenyan takes home. Issues to do with, creation of employment that has rendered many youth who come out of school jobless, and many who again cannot receive an education. And Kenyans can see that these are not issues that have come from Mars or have come from the air. They are issues that are man-made, they are synthetic, they are issues that we have done incorrectly. And that is what we are saying, that we know we can do better. We know that it is not the ink on paper, it is ourselves.
Sure.
So it is for us to change and be faithful to what we put on paper in 2010, and not for us to say that we need to change the words in the document, because there's again, if I may use the analogy of a forest and monkeys, that we want to change the forest, but we want to remain the same monkeys. So even if we plant new trees, we are still the same monkeys. And what Kenyans are saying is that we as the monkeys, let us change our behaviors first, before we say we need to plant 2 or 3 and chop off or prune 1 or 2 of branches from some of the trees. That even if we do that, we are not going to realize that promise. But also to add that there are specific issues in the document that when you look at, do not promise to take us where we want to go. And for me, particularly the issue of amending the structure that is the national executive by increasing the positions that have been purported or proposed to be increased, changing the structure, these, the details, going back to, when you analyze and introspect to what we had before the Constitution came into being in 2010. So we are actually going in reverse. 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, and 3 steps sideways. I think that's what we are trying to do.
So,
please, go ahead, please.
So, Bobby, what I'm hearing you say is that in terms of trying to change the letter, the structure of all of this, it is actually not going to solve the problem for which all of this was instituted in the first place. Because if we're going to look at the simmering tensions that we talk about around the election time, these happened even before 2007. There were simmering tensions before elections, even before then. 2007 came and went, that happened. And then 2013, 2017, that happened again. And so essentially what we are being told now is that some of these issues would be taken care of if there was shared power at the top. And so this winner-takes-all narrative would be put to bed. What I'm hearing you say is that going ahead to change the structure and the letter of the Constitution is not what is going to solve the problem.
Yes, and even if you say the winner-take-all axiom, issues to do, and we remember that this journey started with the handshake and the 9-point agenda that the president and the former prime minister put forward. The proposals to me, do not address those very issues, because those issues and our failures, as I keep saying, failures of agency. They are not failure of imagination. What has stopped the current government and administration from ensuring inclusivity? Are there words in the document that limit that? In fact, when you look at the Constitution as is right now, it is very incessant, right from Article 10 and almost in each and every chapter on specifics to do with inclusivity, whether it's gender inclusivity, whether it's ethno-regional inclusivity. The document is rife with statements that give an open avenue for that to be done. When you look at Chapter 6, leadership and integrity, one of a novel innovation that we have in our document, you don't find in other constitutions, maybe a provision here and there. But Kenyans have witnessed, I would say, the worst experience in an accountable leadership in the past 10 years, whereas the document gives and opens floodgates for leadership with integrity. And so those are the things that we look at and say we think that there are other reasons as to why the document or the proponents of amending the document have come up with. Because if we look at the agenda that was created, the proposals that have been mentioned in the proposed amendment bill, and what we have right now, there is nothing that shows the impediment or obstacles, but it is actually otherwise, that the document is quite generous and prodigal in ways of ensuring that there is inclusivity, that we deal impunity,
Bobby,
and tackle corruption and all those things.
I think part of the questions that we're going to ask you as you continue the conversation is for you to give us insights of what was happening when you were having your sessions at the Council of Governors, not Council of Governors, Committee of Experts, I beg your pardon,
yes.
As a Committee of Experts on Constitution Review, but on balancing the ideals, balancing law, and balancing the politics. Let's take a break first because our friends on KTN Home would like to take a quick break and then come back to the conversation. We are speaking with Bobby Mkangi. Bobby Mkangi is a constitutional lawyer. He was a member of the Committee of Experts on Constitution Review, the ones that gave us the 2010 Constitution, the one that we are about to go into a referendum to amend. Good morning. It's 5 minutes to 8.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
So our KTN audience will be joining us again shortly. As I was saying, Bobby, so
yes.
all these things that you're saying, there's conversations that you were having, I'm sure, as the Committee of Experts. All of you
Yes.
sitting there, you're experts on constitutionalism. And then it went into the political process. And, there's a lot that happened in Naivasha when it went into politics. There's a lot that was also happening in terms of advocacy for you as a Committee of Experts. This is where the politics comes in. And when we look at what is happening now, it's a political process once again. It's a political process so this seems not to be working in terms of the law of the letter versus the reality of politics. So let's try and seek a political solution to this political problem. What's wrong with that?
One, we must not narrow the scope of the politics and political process. We must remember that this document, as is, was actually affirmed by close to 70% of Kenyans in a referendum.
Yeah.
And so the discussions that happened amongst political players were eventually presented to Kenyans. We must also remember that the document as is was birthed by the views that Kenyans presented to the Guy-led commission that took almost 2 years going around the country to receive views from Kenyans and eventually synthesize this into constitutional language and the documents that we had. You mentioned the drafts in eventually getting to what we have right now. And so that's the political process that we are talking about that involved all the players, including Kenyans. And so, again, so when you
But
say
see,
that the politicians
what I mean
are not
by this, for example,
yes.
is the harmonized draft that the committee of experts produced
Yes.
also had left some room for further discussion when it came to the structure of the national executive.
Yes.
Which means that even at that point, you experts were very much aware that there is no easy solution to the structure of the national executive.
That's true. And the point I wanted to make as I was finalizing my point was that what has been presented right now seems to be and has been assessed and by many voices in Kenya to be a limited political discourse amongst political players only, and not Kenyans alone. So when, for instance, when you're talking about the winner-take-all issue, when you go back to Kenya, there are problems about the winner-take-all position emanates from the tradition, the bad tradition that had been created, that it is people around the personalities, and to a large extent, they tend to be from the same ethno-regional community, where the president and the senior members of government come from, that tend to benefit from the largesse that is government, and that this has been proven and shown in forensic and scientific documents. When you look at public appointments, you just need to look at the report that the National Cohesion and Integration Commission and the Public Service Commission and other bodies, non-governmental bodies, have produced. When you look at corruption, you have to look at the Auditor General report. And so these are not things that Kenyans are, speaking, as I said, from nothing or from the air. So the inclusivity and the winner-take-all issues that they were talking about were not about ensuring that the people who participate in electoral competition must be taken care of, but an assurance that each and every Kenyan, regardless of who you voted for, regardless of which region, which community, which religion, or which gender you come from, you benefit equally and equitably. So to narrow this to the fact that it is the political players, and for that matter, those ones who participate in election, and for that matter also those who come from certain communities who must be taken care of after an election, is what we are saying that is very limited in scope and does not meet the thinking and imagination and the experience, the material experience that Kenyans have on a day-to-day basis.
You're coming to the top of the hour.
That's why people, including myself, are looking at this as an MOU among certain political players who want to plant it in the Constitution.
We're coming to the top of the hour, Bobby. When we come back, we want to ask you that question of, why is it that we have not gotten to a point where we can implement the Constitution fully? This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. 8 o'clock. Let's see what's happening on the roads. The conversation continues, and we'll invite you to join in shortly.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so it looks like traffic is moving very slowly right around Gong Road, moving towards then Gitanga Road, Riara Road, and then all the way through to James Gishuru Junction, coming out on the other side of Westlands. It's moving very slowly today, being Friday. Some people are also then outbound the city, coming onto Thika Road, out into the CBD as well, is moving slowly this morning, combined with Kiambu Road. That also is piled up quite some. All right, avoid some of these excess vehicle carriers, especially on Waaki Way this morning, causing some problems that we don't need to deal with. All right, a minor accident on Uhuru Highway today, just past the museum flyover, and so that's causing a little bit of traffic there as well. Wherever you're going, keep safe this morning. It's absolutely important. Spice FMKE, that's how you can get in touch with us on Twitter, just in case you run into anything that we should all know about. Text us as well on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 2.5
the
minutes
only
after
way
8.
to
This is
start
Kenya's
your
biggest
day.
conversation, The Situation Room, having a conversation with Bobby Mkangi, constitutional lawyer. But before we got into him again, CT, today's proverb, what did the sparrow say?
Well, the sparrow had a lot to say on certain matters, but it was very specific on one thing, that this issue of perching was not going to be in his interest. The sparrow said that since the hunter has learned to shoot without missing, it has equally learned to fly without perching.
It's best it doesn't.
It's called stimulus response.
That it is.
Survival.
Yes.
For me to stay alive.
Perch, get shot.
Yes.
Or fall off.
Yes, so don't perch.
All right. We still have Bobby Mkangi on the line, constitutional lawyer, member of the Committee of Experts on Constitution Review. And Bobby, you're arguing against the BBI and you're saying we still have a law that we are so far from implementing, and yet we're talking about now amending that particular law.
Bobby, let me ask you this question. Would I be right if I said that constitutions by their very nature, or our laws, they're aspirational?
Oh, you're very right.
Now, if they're aspirational, again, the question that I asked earlier on, I will rephrase it. You see, when we talk about thresholds and what it is that we must do, and again, the argument about the processes that we must follow in order to ensure that at least a certain trajectory that was aimed at has been met. Here we are having this discussion about the Constitution. Here we are having the BBI, which is bringing about this Constitution. Here we are talking about political processes that influence the very constitutional implementation that we speak about. Here we are talking about constitutional lawyers like yourself putting forth your argument. But the question that still runs through my mind and doesn't seem to have a place to perch is this. Where is the problem? Because all these things seem to me like the very, very thing that we wanted in the first place. People getting to understand their constitution better, politicians putting their best foot forward or putting it in their mouth, however you want to look at it. But at the end of it, us getting to understand what it is we ought to do with our constitution. But the argument that amending the constitution in and of itself is wrong, I find that a very weak argument, because I have to ask, you're a constitutional lawyer, where on this planet have we had countries that have strong democratic processes and also simultaneously have had a full implementation of their constitution?
I think you are the one who's not understanding the argument.
I would agree with you fully. Please explain to me.
The Constitution itself anticipates its amendment. That's why it has provision 255 through 257, but also other ways of interjecting and interventions through the judiciary, through legislation, and through activity also and behavior. That's how we breathe life to the Constitution in one way or another. That's how we create certain conventions, norms, and traditions that give life to a constitution. But as you are saying, the constitution has a logical journey. And a constitution is also informed by certain philosophical underpinning. And the logic of it is that you flow positively in the sense that, for instance, when you look at the issue of how you exercise power, how you tame power, we were coming from a position where power was rested and centralized within one institution. And Kenyans in 2010 felt that it was necessary to dissipate this power and distribute it amongst several institutions. And that's why they ensured that principles of democracy, like separation of powers, independent state institutions, and even added constitutional commissions, just as an extra layer of accountability and governance. So the assumption was moving forward, and the next stage of amending the constitution, and amending it not just for the sake, but for reasons of improving it in terms of making sure that what we've already been able to do, we can improve on that, would spell a way forward that shows that we are dissipating and distributing power even further. But those of us who are against amending the Constitution, not against the principle or the fact of amending, but the reasons of amending that have been proposed so far. And that's why when you look at the Constitution, it does not say when we amend the Constitution. That is an open question, because that is left to Kenyans to decide on the proposals and the reason. So anyone who feels that they want the Constitution amendment for one reason or another, and several processes and personalities have previously done so, they present their proposals to Kenyans, and Kenyans look at the reasons. And it is upon the argument of those reasons and the judgment whether those reasons actually improve the document, they improve our practice, they improve our statute, then they decide whether they are going to affirm that proposal or not. So our argument, for those of us who are saying that the Constitution should not be amended, is because of the reasons and the process that has been fronted for us for the amendment. So it is not that we are against amending the Constitution per se, but the reasons and the proposals that have been presented. And if I finalize with the example I was giving about power holding and wielding, we are actually going back to the pre-2010 position, an illogical position. We are not improving. We are going back to centralized power around one institution, around, going back to a way of doing things that Kenyans had problems with. And so it is illogical and ought not to be entertained. And that's why we are saying that we do not think, or if I may be an agent of myself, I am saying that I don't think that the proposals that have been given, the process that has been used, and even the environment right now that is being used to undertake this debate is pertinent to taking us forward, logically forward, in our constitutional journey as a nation.
So, Bobby, then just now changing tack just ever so slightly, but then all of this still married within the same union, if we can say. So then looking at the country and looking at things that have taken place over time, why then? Why, in your opinion, is it so difficult for laws to be translated into action? Things that have been agreed upon, written down, discourse has taken place. It's been enshrined in a document and it has become law. Why is it so difficult then for these laws to be translated into action in this country?
It's very simple, because we have refused to do so. And especially, leadership, because it is a political leadership. When you look at Article 1, sovereignty belongs to all Kenyans. They exercise it directly or indirectly, and that's why certain institutions have been created and given certain authority to implement the document. And so it is these institutions, it is the personalities. The other day we were watching Americans celebrate their democratic breakthrough. And we saw the former president of America say that it actually takes institutions and men and women to ensure that democracy grows in a country. So we have the institution of the Constitution. We have to ask ourselves, where are the men and women that are supposed to breathe life to this document? So that is the lacuna. The lacuna is that the men and women, especially those who have been given the power and authority to breathe life, to ensure that those words, the ink on paper jumps out and is animated, does not do so.
But also, it also
happen.
goes to the people as well, Bobby. I mean, let's look at not just the Constitution, but all the laws that we have in the land. So, picking just on the Constitution, Chapter 6, that also gives a lot of power and responsibility and duty to the citizen at the ballot to elect a leader whom they feel meets that threshold of leadership and integrity. And yet, the same people that we say that have been elected who are not implementing the laws, or who are not even making laws that are good for the people, have been elected by the people. They represent the people, not just at the national level, at the county level as well. We hear people complaining all the time, laws that have been passed in the county assemblies. When they are not implemented fully, it's about leadership. But at the same time, those leaders have been elected and chosen by the people. What is the role of the people?
I agree with you. And there's the axiom that, or reasoning that, people get the leadership that they deserve. And I think we have to look at ourselves as a country where the poverty is, and it's not only material poverty, but value, we are beholden to a colonial thinking in terms of how we mobilize and organize our politics, because we do it ethno-regionally, or if I may use the common word, tribe, that we have not been able to imagine ourselves beyond the languages that we
But Bobby, is that really true?
And it is very true, because let us look at the issue of, for instance, corruption. The past 5 or 6 years that we've been dealing with scandals, whenever somebody is mentioned, look at how the voices match against each other. If the person named is from your village, it is not corruption. If he is from another village or she is from another village, then that is what is corruption. And you can zero in to that aspect of ethno-regional imagination.
But is it a matter of tribalism or ethno-regional? I like that term, ethno-regional complexity. Or is it the evolutionary mindset that we've acquired with regards to impunity and corruption? Meaning we have actually morphed into accepting corruption as a normal part of our being.
Yes, that's very true. But as I'm saying, when you zero in and look at where that rests, where does that come from, and what supports that, it's actually how what we inherited in terms of how we see ourselves as the state of Kenya. and the different personalities that play within this institution that is the state of Kenya, that unfortunately we have never been able to imagine ourselves beyond the languages and the places that we come from.
Can you permit me to differ with you on this particular matter, please?
Sorry?
I'm saying I want you to permit me to differ with you, because I actually want to differ with you on this particular matter.
Go ahead.
If you look at the history of our politics, and we follow that particular argument, you will find that at certain points in our history, that very, very notion and that very concept has actually been nullified.
Yes.
I come from a community that has been believed to be the community that was irrevocably and entrenched in the opposition towards the people of central Kenya, meaning the Luo Kikuyu differences. But if you actually go back into history, that difference didn't actually exist as it has been presented now. From the time Jaramogi, Raila's father, was in the group gunning for independence, to the time of our second liberation, to the time when Raila himself endorsed what was then considered a Kikuyu presidency, to now this handshake with what we know to be what is called a Kikuyu presidency. And yet, if you look at the details, it isn't any of the things that we keep saying it is. I think it is a view that people have held and they've chosen to promote in simplifying a complex situation in which Kenyans, simple, ordinary Kenyans, find themselves in. Because if this were true, then every day in our lives, our ethnicity would play out in the way we live and in the way we work, and it doesn't.
I agree with you, CT, but I also remind you that you're the same one who keeps reminding us that we vote ethnically.
We do.
Our politics is ethnic.
We do.
But that's the same thing Bobby is saying.
Yes,
no, I'm
that's what I was
arguing
saying.
against what Bobby is saying, because Bobby is making it sound as though it's entrenched and it's removal. I'm saying not true.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it actually, as of now, it is what is simmering, and that's why I'm saying we must imagine ourselves beyond that. We must get a discourse that helps us to discuss and talk about ourselves beyond the languages that we speak, the places that we come from. And the current constitution actually gives us a good platform.
Bobby, let me ask you a direct question. Which part of Kenya do you come from?
Very many parts.
But coastal, perhaps. Is that it?
I come from, my father comes from the coast. My mother comes from Ukambani.
Excellent.
I have lived in Nairobi all my life.
Now, you are the right person to actually respond to what I'm about to ask. You tell me, the political leaders, every region in this country has political leaders. Now, which national political leaders do the people at the coast resonate with the most in this country? Is it somebody from their community?
And it doesn't have to be that.
Yes, if you look at the election of someone like Sonko, we call him Sonko, His Excellency Mbuvi Sonko. Did that man not prove this point exactly the opposite of it? Because who would you say elected him if it wasn't a conglomeration of all the communities that we know of?
Very true, but you still have a basis of it. And I think what we're trying to do is we are trying to use outliers and exceptions to argue out a political organization in terms of what we call political parties in Kenya. Why do we have a sense that they do have a certain proclivity of support from certain areas? Why do certain
ethnicity is a low-hanging fruit, Bobby?
It is, but it is an important issue that we must circumvent and surmount so that we go to the next threshold. In fact, you are saying that, and you're proposing or arguing for BBI, which
Actually,
apparently
has
five.
I'm not arguing for BBI. I'm arguing about the issues that have been brought about with reference to the BBI. That is really not support, just the issues around it. That is really what I'm bringing to the fore.
and the proponents, when we talk about the 5 positions that have been proposed in the as amendment to the national executive, they are ring fenced around what is being called the Big Five, big 5 communities that our politics, and for that matter, unfortunately, how we look at many other things, impunity, corruption, our value system, is organized around the issue of ethnicity, the issue of regions, and unfortunately, that is what has affected how we meet and deal with many other issues. So, in as much as there are other complexities that make us not implement the document.
Bobby, even looking at it from implementation of laws, because that's what we all start. Well, that's what all of this, started from, the implementation of laws, and then translating into action. Everybody bears a responsibility. I still see that the ethnic card, Bobby, is played as a unit of division. I don't see, especially from somebody outside looking in, I don't see that Kenyans are divided along ethnic lines, except when it is used as a tool. I think Kenyans have gone beyond that now to say that, you know what, it's not really about where we're from that will divide us, unless now when that is lorded over us. Why then is it that it can't be seen that it's not an ethnic issue anymore, and for Kenyans to see beyond that? Why is it so difficult? I still don't understand why we can't just say, look, it doesn't matter where you're from. You're still able to abide within these boundaries of this country. It's been used by politicians to divide us before, over and over and over again. Why then can you not break free from that, even if it's a mental hold?
Can I ask you the question, why must they break free?
I like how you put it, that it's actually used. It's because in our daily social, economic meetings, we live together, we worship together, we school together, we play together.
Yes.
But when we reduce it to the political level, that's where the advantage is taken off in terms of who or where we come from. And it is that part of leadership, that springboard, that we need to use to go beyond and imagine a nation that is Kenya. Because we have to remember that the nation that is Kenya or the state that is Kenya is a multinational state made up of many and different nationalities, what we call tribes. And so we need to find a new thinking, new value system, new aspirations. And I was about to say the current constitution actually presents that. When you look at Article 10, the principles of governance and national values, and that is a platform that Kenyans created, that we are going to say we are the nation of Kenya when we abide to Article 10 of the Constitution, not when you abide to what your political leader from your village or the political leader that speaks your language is asking you to do. And at the end of the day, we should not dismiss this and just say that because on our diurnal undertakings we live together, we work together. We must ask ourselves, why is it that when it comes to elections, we still find those formations coming out clearly? When we have discourse about the issues that are eating us as our society, corruption, impunity, that we still want to be beholden to this. But I'm happy that in the recent past, there's been discussion and discourse that is presenting itself as a platform of Kenyans thinking beyond the regions and political chiefs that come from those regions. Right now, as you are speaking, you are aware of the politics of rotational presidency. And we want to claim that this is an issue that is absent from our society. Why? The rotational presidency has not been proposed on the basis of gender. It has not been proposed on the basis of age. It has not been proposed on the basis of, it has been proposed on the basis of tribe. So let us not try and run away from this issue. But there are Kenyans who are saying that we are beyond tribe, and that's what I am saying, that we have a platform that right now that helps us to escape this tribal colonial mentality. And that platform is the Constitution as is right now. And the details of it are actually founded along Article 10, when we have national values and principles of governance. And when you look at the Bill of Rights, that actually describes who a Kenyan is, that when those things are attained for any Kenyan, using devolution, using leadership that is pregnant with integrity, using a national executive that presents plans and programs that ensure that the livelihood of Kenyans is improved, using a legislature that checks the executive and a judiciary that is very brave to ensure that the legislature and the executive meet the will of the people, then we are going to start saying that we are creating the nation of Kenya that is thinking beyond tribe. But right now, when you tell me that we are not thinking tribally, and the heavy debate in the country is that the presidency should be rotated along tribal lines, then I think I'm living in a different Kenya.
Bobby Mkangi, thank you very much for speaking to us. Bobby Mkangi is a constitutional lawyer. He was a member of the Committee of Experts on Constitution Review. Asante sana for joining us today, Bobby.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
27 minutes after 8, time for us to take a break, have a weather update and see what's happening on the roads. And then we continue the conversation. We'll ask you to join in 0719 012 600. What is it that is it in our culture? Is it in our value system where we have laws that do not translate into action? That's what we are discussing this hour.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay, it's quite cloudy in Nairobi.
The weather with Spice.
We'll see highs today of 26 and lows of 16. It's partly sunny in Nyeri at 17, highs of 23 and lows of 14. 14 will also be the low in Nakuru. Currently sunny at 18, going to highs of 27. It's also sunny in Eldoret at 12, going to highs of 24. Sunny conditions in Kisumu. 23 will be the high. 29 will be the high with lows of 19. Kakamega is sunny at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Rain showers in Mombasa, 25 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 24. It also is still raining in Malindi at 27. It will go to highs of 31 and lows of 25. 26 will be the high in Kampala today. It's partly sunny at the moment at 18, and that will be the low as well. It's raining in Dar es Salaam at 27 degrees, 31 the high and lows of 26. Sunny conditions in Johannesburg will take us 29 degrees as a high and lows of 16. It also go to a high of 34 where it's quite hazy in Lagos at 23 at the moment. And light rain continues to come down from Kinshasa skies at 23, highs of 31 and lows of 22.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so where it's a little bit crazy, still Mombasa Road, and everybody turning from Kappa, exiting today ends up in traffic. The traffic police are trying to sort that one out, but there's heavy traffic between the Gateway Mall and Cabanas today, and then also a short way out of Cabanas towards General Motors. That is still a problem area this morning, as is Thika Road. As you get to the Pangani Tunnel, it's actually slow there also, coming into the CBD. Outbound Westlands moving slowly, coming in from Limuru Road past the Village Market, and then past Aga Khan. That is also moving slowly as you get into the CBD. It's not too crazy though. Uhuru Highway, however, it is between the Nyayo Stadium and getting through to Westlands, stopping in the CBD. That's moving slowly. It should be out in about an hour or so, but we'll take a look and see what it looks like. Spice FM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch, or text 40127.
Spice and everything nice. All right, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
KTN home and online. In the room this and every weekday morning is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and CT Muga. So we have very many laws in this country. In fact, when it comes to laws, we keep talking about how we have robust laws. Our constitution is hailed as among the best in the region, in the continent, and in some aspects when it comes to the Bill of Rights in the world. And then there's vertical ground, which are different, not just on the constitution, on laws. So we have a law on this, we have a law on the other, and everything has basically been covered somewhere in law. Where is that gap, and why do we have that gap between law and action? Whenever we bring up this conversation, we always point to our leaders. But you see the leaders, you see the goodwill of the political leadership, you see the goodwill of those in power, those in authority, those who are supposed to implement the law, or those who are supposed to enforce the law in various aspects. Is that all? Is it just the leaders to blame? Or do we also as citizens play a part?
I wouldn't even
And is it just that? Is it just the people, or is it something inside?
The thing I would first put a halt to is to give more air and more life to the narrative of blame. I would put blame aside, and I would introduce the concept of understanding. Because essentially what we are discussing here is something that is a manifestation of something deeper. What is it about us and our ability to accommodate dishonesty?
Right.
Why is it that someone lies to you, and this is where the issue of the political realm comes in? You know this person is lying, and yet you accommodate them, and you're even willing to give them another chance to lie to you again. Why? You know very well that this person looks after their own interest first. Why? I think if you look at just the very concept of hope and how it is human beings thrive and live and survive on that particular principle more than even the reality of things, then in my mind, it is not difficult to understand why we do this. Because even as we talk about the norm, and Bobby Mkangi brought in an interesting point. He said, you have these exceptions, and then we use that as a base of an argument. But I would argue, if I were to look at the law, what is the term precedence? Precedence, that one example, it's not 10, it's just that one example, and that forms the basis on which you can actually formulate an argument. So let me get to what you are asking. I'm moving away from what the citizenry ought to do or what the politicians ought to do to when we say this works for us, are we more interested in immediacy, something that will benefit us now? Are we capable of looking into the future and asking what the consequences of what we are seeing as beneficial now will be? Or are we willing to ask and say, is there really any use in believing in things in the future as opposed to what is immediate? And I would argue all our activities, all our thinking actually has to do with the future, not the present. Why do people take children to school? It's the future. Why do you even think of owning things or buying something? It's the future. Because by the time you think of these things, your present is actually taken care of. But then you understand there's something else you must do. So our whole thing is actually invested in the future. But where the aberration occurs is when we now bring the thinking to political processes and politicians who represent this process.
In some cases, it's also the definition of that future.
Sure, but
how long from today is the future?
But I would also argue that the participation in a political process like voting is really not about thinking about the future. It's about an activity that we need to get through this day, without thinking about how your decisions then reflect on that future. Because it cannot be. You take, like you said, you've given the example. You take children to school so that they have an education and then they can, get into a state of critical thinking further in life and then make these decisions and make life better for themselves. Yes? Why is it then? Because if that were the case and you apply that same kind of thinking to the manner in which people vote, I think you would see a different kind of voting. You would not necessarily just vote for the politician who's going to give you a sack of unga or some 250 shillings in your pocket to sway the vote in their direction. You would actually make decisions that would better your future. You would be involved in the process moving forward. You would. I don't think it deals with, somehow when it comes to political process, that logical thinking is thrown out the window. Because the decisions often are made about the person who sways you in one direction and you get caught up in this temporal euphoria. Because if it was about the future, if it was about making things better, you would look behind and say, hold on, this person, what is their track record? What is it that they've been able to do? How have they been able to make decisions that would benefit me? What did they do with the laws that were given to them to legislate upon and then put into practice? Did they do it? We would be at that kind of critical thinking, the same critical thinking that's applied to your children when you take them to school. We would apply the same when it came to voting. But somehow it doesn't happen.
But maybe it does. That's why people vote out leaders. It's because you're looking at what has this person done. You're basically looking at, this person the last time came to me, I elected him. And since then, so the definition of what, you ought to be judging them on is something different. But then you're thinking, this person, we have not even seen him here. The road that was as dilapidated as when he was getting in is still the same. The hospitals are still the same. So I'm voting them out. And I'm voting in somebody else because this other person is promising to do 1, 2, 3 other things. In other cases, it's all about making a score, just winning for now, and which comes to the issue that you raised earlier, City, which is that this person is lying to you, but then you still continue electing them. At that point, are we really thinking about the person whether the person is lying? Let's just look at the current political situation, right, at the national level. There is Raila, there is Ruto, there is Musalia Mudavadi, there is Alfred Mutua, there is Kivutha Kibwana, there's all these leaders. Are you telling me that people who are supporting Kivutha Kibwana or Raila or Ruto are thinking of, is this person lying or is he telling the truth? Is that what's going to determine my support for the person or is it not? It goes completely out of the window and something else comes in. Some other emotional tag comes in. The supporters of Raila will support Raila and then they'll now look for excuse to put it up there. Raila has fought for the country. Raila was jailed. Raila has pushed for democracy. Raila is pro-person. Same thing will happen with the supporters of William Ruto. Same will happen with the supporters of Kalonzo Musyoka, of Kivutha Kibwana. Kivutha has done very well in Makueni. Kivutha. Now, whether you are thinking about what Kivutha is telling you he's going to do with the country if you elected him, is there what is running through your mind? I don't think so.
So essentially,
it becomes a whole emotional.
So what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is that these tenets that we look at as to the achievements that our leaders have don't really count.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Because development track record is like, so what? Because again, there are examples of individuals who one could argue have given a good account of themselves when it comes to a track record. There are those who've been voted in and have continued to be voted in.
Yep.
There are those who haven't fared very well because the person who has come in. So is it them or is it the nature of the voter? Because sometimes there are voters who actually believe in an equitable distribution of leadership.
Rotational.
Yeah, rotational. When we voted this and it's all right. We like what you're doing, but let's give somebody else a chance, please. Mm-hmm. And they are not voting you out. No. They're simply saying, you've had your turn, thank you. Let's let somebody else have their turn also. Which is it?
And what determines the person that they choose as the other person? Because there'll be several other alternatives.
I think
so there's you who's the incumbent, and then there's 4 others. What makes the people choose number 1 and not number 3?
What is truly odd is that this issue of track record comes into play. People think it doesn't, but it does. This is a person we have seen. This is a person who has been with us. Now, this with us, he attends church. contributes to Harambes. We have seen he's helped when we had ABCD, and he is known widely enough. So it isn't just this clan. Other people have also seen his hand, and they have seen what he can do. And then there is the nominal accepted, should we say, greetings that he has spread widely. He has gone and greeted everyone.
Many people.
Yes. And when he has greeted, this man has come and greeted us. Yes. He has come to the communities, he's even come to the villages, he's come to homes to greet people and to tell people. They feel, no. He has met a minimum threshold of what we require. So he stands a chance.
So at the point when people are making these decisions, because honestly, it can sound very nice and very, academic that, people should actually vote along the lines of the individual who's going to bring about development and the person who's going to rack up points in terms of that agenda and working on, making sure that the legislated laws, it sounds great, but people don't make decisions based on that.
No, that actually isn't their concern. And
so they're not really bothered with it at that point.
But it's not really their issue, is it?
No.
As far as they're concerned.
No, it really isn't.
They elect you to deal with those issues.
They elect you to deal with those issues, and then they withhold the right to call you out on it in the future should you not do it. Meanwhile, when they were campaigning for your vote, it was one of the things that you held them to account over, right? Okay, what is this person going to do? We've got a number of schools that are dilapidated. We need that sorted out. We have some roads that are not quite working. Maybe this person's going to come in and do it. Maybe there's going to be support for the local this, that, the other thing. That's what you kind of think in your head. And then you say, okay, well, when you come in, you go and do that. But then who's going to sort out my immediate need at the time that you're campaigning? Who's going to sort that out? That's the person I'm likely to give my vote. You don't hold them to account over it until later on when you're bringing in that other person that you want to give a chance. You say, after all, they didn't do anything along these lines, which is what should be, which is what you should be holding them to account over. The things that we're complaining about now, look at what we're talking about tax. Look at what we're talking about the debt ceiling. Look at what we're talking about when it comes to development agenda in the country. Those are the things we're complaining about and say, if only we had leaders who would have done these things right. If only we had governance and leadership that took these things into consideration, would we not be doing much better? But you put them there.
Even if we had leaders who do exactly those things, you think people wouldn't complain?
Of course they would, but they would be a little bit more comfortable with some of the things that they see around them, no?
Comfort would give them an even bigger and better platform to complain.
Sasa unanipatia sahani mbili tu, kwa nini usinipatia sahani tatu? Sasa sahani mbili mtu atashiba. And you forget, it's 2 plates. You've already been given. Bringing it back to this issue of we have laws, they don't translate into action. Then we have leaders who do not seem to implement the laws. We have a citizen who don't seem to even understand what the law is.
The law is in the first place?
Or choose not to understand what the law is. The issue of leadership and integrity in Chapter 6. Go to any part of this country and ask people, do you know Chapter 6? They'll tell you, yes.
Leadership and integrity.
They'll tell you, yes, it's in the Katiba.
And the Bill of Rights, they also know.
They'll tell you about the Bill of Rights and what should happen. Now, when you're making any decision with regards to, for example, corruption, and Bobby Mkangi was saying what we had said earlier, on this show. If it comes to corruption, today, mention Raila Odinga, put corruption next to Raila Odinga. It stops being anything. There is no merit. It doesn't matter. Mention to the supporters of William Ruto, Kalonzo Musyoka, it does not matter. Corruption can be anywhere else, but not this one. Catch them with the hand deep there in the cookie jar. In fact, the hand is stuck. No, this was a trap. It was
that is not even his hand.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's hand.
You see what they're trying to do? In fact, look at that jar. It's empty. It was.
In fact, this jar doesn't say cookies.
Yes, it's not a cookie jar.
Actually, if you were simply to look, and this one, you don't need something intricate. Just use the powers of observation, a basic tool for data collection. All right? Look and ask yourself, what do you see? And this thing that you see, what does it tell you? Okay? And if you look, and right across the country, you'll find commonalities. There may be variations here and there, but they're commonalities. And so I ask the question, why then do we retreat when it comes to these political issues to what we like calling a tribal cocoon? And the reason is because it is where we believe we have a safety net.
No, I think Kenyans do. Yeah, it's a safety net, and we don't want to take responsibility for the decisions that you make about who you put in positions of leadership.
So I want you to be collective.
So let's all of us together. And the reason why it looks as if it was bad is because we voted along tribal lines. Meanwhile, you don't want. Yeah, can you imagine?
Look,
you don't want to take responsibility because you made a
You
bad decision
alone-
about who
I
you
d-
put
I-
in power.
Alone made
I
a
actually
decision.
don't
Yeah,
think
you
I,
made a decision.
No, I don't think
when
it's a
you
bad
were-
decision.
when
It's not
you were playing-
Kikuyus who made the- it's you.
Exactly, it's you. When you were making that decision at the ballot, when you were Xing, where it was your whole clan and the people that you are from, where you are from, were they with you? No.
You do have a
made the
valid point,
decision.
but it isn't a bad
Take
decision.
responsibility for the decision that you made, and then as you move on in the future, if you're really concerned about where it is going, make the right decision. And then don't come and tell us later, oh, you know, the reason why is we all voted because we are all challenging together. Come on. It's old.
No.
It's old.
Actually, it isn't old, it's realistic.
It's unuseful.
No.
It is
The
unuseful.
reason why we keep seeing it happening is because there are people who find use for it.
But it is not useful. It isn't.
Look.
It is so not
Who are these
useful
people
that
who find
can you
use
see
for it?
until now? Can you imagine
those people who
City,
vote?
Can you imagine that now you want to amend an entire constitution, right? Because you feel
Is it entire or an
Okay,
aspect of the
parts of the
constitution?
constitution, right? You want to change it.
So
But
many
no,
clauses,
look,
but it's
they
almost
say that
entire.
if something is white, right, and you put a mark of green, the cloth is no longer white. Okay, it has already changed.
Oh no, it is white with a green strip.
It has something else in it, so it's
Yes.
not completely white anymore.
Not completely,
finished.
but it's predominantly white.
You can't continue to say the reason why we want to change things is because, you know, there are some tribes that are not comfortable, others need to, and it's what has been causing problems in this country. No, take responsibility for the things that you have not done. Take the responsibility.
let me-
and
let
make
me
the
ask
right
you, Ndu,
decision.
the
You
yardstick-
can't continue falling on this thing and saying, well,
Actually,
we
you
need to
can,
please
Ndu.
this person and please the other.
Actually, you
No,
can, because you
can't.
see-
it's about time it stopped.
You're using a yardstick that, in my opinion, doesn't really help understand the political process. Political processes don't follow the logic that you are putting across. They don't actually. They follow a completely different logic.
Which political process? You
Which
know,
one
there are some
specifically?
political processes that are completely corrupted, have been corrupted, like ours.
In the way in which it was originally designed to be,
This
it
thing
is
of
not
telling us
following
that
it.
people vote this way ethnically, it's our political process. Oh, no, it's our
a
political
political
culture.
process.
People are beaten during political campaign, it's our politics. People are insulted and they insult one another, it's our politics. People go and steal money. Right now, people are stealing, people could be stealing money.
Creating a war chest
All
for
right.
create-
Why
you know,
don't
it's our
I then
political
ask the
process.
question,
Ah,
so what is it
Chabwana.
then? In your opinion, what is it then?
It's a corrupted set of thinking of the way in which things are actually supposed to be done.
And who is it perpetrated by?
Everybody. The people who have corrupted it to suit their needs, and the people that they have hoodwinked into believing that it is the right way to go, so they eventually go and vote for
You see,
them.
you're doing the thing you're speaking against. You're avoiding answering my
No,
question.
it's everybody. No, but you can't just say it's one
And,
person.
and
because
you're doing the very thing you're speaking against. You're now finding people to blame.
No. Everybody in the same, and that's what I'm saying. The people who went to vote will now later come and say, you know what, we voted because we've been told it's a tribal thing. The same people who use it and say, you know what, we need to stick together. We also need our chance at the plate. No. Everybody needs to take responsibility, and that's what I said from the beginning.
Everybody
Whether
indeed.
you are the politician, whether you are the person who is voting, come on. We don't want to open our eyes and see what the problems really are. That you want to keep power in one place for a longer period of time? No. That you want to stop people from being able to think logically about the decisions that they're making
And
for
what's,
who they are putting?
what's preventing them from thinking logically? Pray tell.
What's preventing them from thinking logically?
Yes.
You come to them and
Avoiding
you,
responsibility.
right there. Right there. What's wrong with people saying, thank you for what you've told us, we understand, but you know what, that whatever you want to use to sway us in one direction, the one that you've talked about, the people who've greeted the salutation, we don't want the salutation, thank you. Let us just make this decision based on what we see and how we want our country to go.
When you were growing up, you did read fairy tales, didn't you?
You see, that's another problem. You think it things that can actually be achieved, because everybody's of the thinking that
it can
it
be
can't
achieved.
be achieved.
Yes,
so it's a
it-
fairy tale.
yes,
so
no.
let's just do what we can, because that
The
other
fairy- the
place,
fairy tale-
that other place
I
is a
have
fairy
Jimmy on the
tale,
line.
and we can't live there.
Jimmy is in Malindi, and he's on the line. Let's hear from him. Jimmy, good morning.
Good morning to how are you all?
We're fine.
Fine,
thank you, Jimmy.
Fine, thank you. Okay. Going to the point, I can say, loss of direction, it comes when this country was being given to its own people to lead it. We lost direction. And this loss of direction is what has been causing all these problems that we're talking about even now. Our main issue here, look, it's ego. Ego is what is killing everything. Because at first, when we were fighting for independence, it was all about KANU, Kenya African National Union. So the main agenda was about Africa. It was not all about Kenya. Look at Mau Mau. Mzungu arudi Ulaya, Mwafrika apate uhuru. People had organized themselves for the liberation of Africa. And when we got this power, Kenyatta got the presidency, got the leadership. Let me just say the leadership, was the prime minister or whatever. Got the leadership. This leadership was supposed to be with Odinga, with Jaramogi. Jaramogi said, let's give this one because this one is our head. He has really fought for this and he deserves it. Then from there, who is bigger than the other? No, it is me who is bigger than, it is me who is this KPU, KANU. Oh, then ego started. I am the one who is above you. No, I am the one who is above you. So when this above you started, the direction of liberation of Africa disappeared.
But then, Jimmy,
yes.
So why is it still persistent to date? Why is it that today you and your fellow voters in Malindi will make a decision? This is not about the national politics, it's just about your local ward. How will you make the decision of who to elect for your local ward in Malindi? And what will be determining that? Will it be about ego?
Very good. What I can say, when you are just like we were saying about a white cloth with a green mark, the moment that this thing creeps into the people, it has been going on spoiling every color that is white and making it a little bit green and light green up to the ward level. So the people now, they don't vote because they're voting because that they like someone. Like for me, from my tribe, if it's an up-country person going for a voting, wants to be in a position in Malindi or in this region, you'll find difficulties of tribalism. And where did this difficulty of tribalism start? We go back to the beginning there, behind there. So we are having all these problems because we have failed to accept the reality that we are all one with an agenda, greed, hunger. People are being left without food. When you don't give people food, you will control them. And if the government empowers agriculture, sincerely speaking with all its effort, and people have got cheap food, people will start making wise.
People will start seeing differently. Thank you very much, Jimmy. Have a good day in Malindi. Thank you very much for having us on this conversation. We want to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since 7, now coming up to 6 minutes to 9 o'clock. Join us again on Monday on KTN Home. But these conversations happen on Spice FM each and every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. My name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga and Nduoko. See you on Monday. But join us on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa. Nakuru is 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, or Malindi 97.7. Or you can tune in Spice FM KE on Facebook, on YouTube, or on Twitter. We are live streaming there.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Okay, so you heard what Ndu was saying. It's all about avoiding that responsibility. It's all about wanting to be part of the collective so that it's not you who will be held accountable or to blame when things hit the fan. Why is it that people spoil public toilets and they don't do the same at home?
Well, the same could be asked as why do people keep throwing papers and rubbish everywhere?
And they don't do that in their house.
They don't do that in their houses.
In fact, you find them sweeping their house. In fact, you find them at home in your own personal space shouting at people and keeping them accountable.
People being children.
Taking responsibility and saying, clean up this place. Don't leave it like that. But the same person, you find them throwing something
out there
in public.
What is it about our attitude towards what we may call authority? What is our attitude towards? Is it a lack of understanding? Is it a lack of appreciation of what we need to do? Is it this dichotomous nature that we have, the Jekyll and Hyde? On the one hand, we are this here, but on the other hand, we are the other here. What is it? What would you call it? Because if you ask me, you see, this is an argument we've had for the longest time with regards to the voter. Is the voter misguided? Does the voter know what they're doing? My position has been the voter knows exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they are doing. Hoodwinked? No, they know exactly what they're doing. Your argument that they are running away from the responsibility of electing the leader, I think it holds some water, but I would approach it differently. What I would say is this. It is the voter doing what the politicians do, expediency, seeking what would benefit at that particular point in time. When you vote, this is what might benefit you. It appears like it isn't. You shift. Now, that flexibility of mind, is it always necessarily negative? And I would say, no, not necessarily. Because there's that same mindset that makes it possible for Kenyans to be as adjustable as they are.
What is that expediency at that point with the voter?
The expediency is, yes, at the time when you're voting, there's two things. One, there's the herd mentality that always accompanies certain things that people do. But there's also the expectation of some sort of immediate and direct benefit, which is the bribe that you might receive in the electoral process. Okay.
How many people in a constituency that has
hope,
hundreds of thousands, how many people actually take a bribe?
Eric, it's the hope. And even those who do not even anticipate or want the bribe.
And I think those are in every constituency, majority are the people who do not receive.
They don't want it, they don't even seek it. But Eric, remember, they're already predisposed towards voting for someone. Now, this someone will know that there are people who are predisposed towards being given, and so they meet that need. They don't go around looking for you and forcing you to take money. No. They give money to those who have shown a desire to have that money given to them. Yes. If you're sitting at home, how often do you think it is a politician will actually come to your home to give you money? No, it happens, by the way.
It does.
It does. But I'm saying it's not something that is regular. Look, when I said it is a complex situation that we sometimes try to simplify, I meant it. Because it isn't as though it's static. It evolves. Because what we're discussing now was not always the case. And I'm arguing that it will not always be the case. But for now, no insultment here. When I talked about fairy tales, it's because right now, the reality that we face against what we hope should happen makes the hope a fairy tale. That's really what I was saying. But it doesn't mean it cannot happen.
Sure. And I think that we need to also then get to the place where if you have people thinking in what could be the reality, then you remove them from that thing and say, well, to live in that place where you see other quote unquote mature democracies operating, that's a fairy tale. But if you see that it can be a reality now, today, by the small decisions that you take and you make today, then you remove that fairy tale aspect that you're talking about. Look at these supposedly mature democracies that we're talking about. The decisions that they make when they're going to the ballot, for example. The rousing up of people to go and vote. At that point, are they thinking about what I'm going to get for myself?
Their thinking at the point is the same as our thinking. I mean, look, it's all emotional. It's all everything else. But then maybe it comes to the actual people who get voted in. And that's a reflection of the entire fabric and the value system that they hold. That's why it looks abhorrent for one to stand out and they behave the way they are behaving. Because there's a value system, probably. This conversation is continuing to the next hour. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM. Nairobi.
Okay, looking a little bit better on our roads this morning. Coming off Mombasa Road, however, we still have folks a bit stuck there, and it's just before General Motors, and then it smooths over. So you get to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Uhuru Highway then is stuck as you're getting into the CBD out through Westlands. Coming off the road, a little bit better as you get into the CBD. Spice FM KE, that's how you can get in touch with us through the day. Remember that the bypasses, those are not giving up any problems today. That's Red Hill, Southern, Eastern, looking really good right about now. Tell us if you get stuck somewhere. Don't forget, you can text as well, 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
It's
day.
2 minutes after 9. A very good morning to you, and thank you very much for keeping it right here on Spice FM, broadcasting on Spice FM and online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, www.spicefm.co.ke. CT Muga, today's proverb.
Right.
Sparrow.
Even birds have their say, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Right. The sparrow said that since the hunter has learned to shoot without missing, it has also equally learned to fly without perching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So for how long does it intend to keep flying?
Insofar as it is out of the range of the hunter, it'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
So that's the point.
Remember, one of the things that birds are able to do, you think of it requiring energy to fly, the birds can glide.
I see.
Just spread their wings and the wind will move them along.
The wind beneath their wings will hold them up.
Yes.
Way.
Actually, Ndu is absolutely correct there. Not just move them along. The wind beneath their... The wind, I was about to say the wing between their winds. The wind beneath their wings.
Okay. So, some comments coming in on the conversation that we're having. You know, there's a whole issue of the responsibilities of everybody, the responsibility of the leaders that have been elected. Because we're talking about laws translating to action, laws that have been passed, laws that have been discussed, there's citizen public participation translating into action, or laws being broken. It's not only leaders who break laws, even citizens break laws. Now, where does that responsibility lie? Is it on the leadership alone? Is it a shared responsibility between the leaders and the citizens? And then the comment says, look, it's a fact that elections have been stolen. Now, this is talking about voter fraud. Elections have been stolen both at the presidential and other levels. What's to be said about that? Why are we judging the citizens and leaving out perpetrators of such injustices? And this is what he says. Bob Mkangi was also calling it impunity.
Without public participation, because this one is real public participation, genuine, those things wouldn't be what they are. Look, everyone plays a part. So that's why I was moving away from the ideal of blame. Everyone plays a part, so it means everyone bears a responsibility. The former late President Moi put it well. It put it so well, it is amazing. Siasa mbaya?
Maisha mbaya.
Yeah. He summarized it. The siasa isn't the voting. The siasa is your thinking about what you think a leader should represent. The siasa is you participating in that process with certain anticipations, and which also goes into the demands that you make. Siasa goes into, one, you and how it is you conduct whatever political process you're involved in at whatever time. That's the process. Because that's what produces these leaders. So when people say they're a reflection of us, spot on. Spot on.
It's true.
Spot on.
But also when we bring in the conversation, and it's a valid argument about voter fraud and electoral malpractice, that then gives us this sort of leaders who have stolen their way into positions of power. I asked the question, what's the percentage of that though? If you look at all the elections that take place around the country, there are very many elections that take place on the general election. Because at every ward, there's an MCA election taking place. At every ward, there's a parliamentary
all
election.
Over the country.
All over the country. 6 slots. What percentage of those actually get into office through fraudulent means?
I do not think that there would be many. And the reason is because you may try to influence that particular process. But usually, the majority will hold sway.
Yep. Also, we would also go with the number of electoral petitions that are filed after an election, the number of election petitions that are upheld by the courts after an election. And if you look at the percentages, even the Electoral Commission people have argued, if you look at the percentages of electoral petitions that are filed after an election over the number of years, they've been reducing. If you look at how many of those challenges are actually upheld by the courts, that also has been reducing. So by and large, if you look at the entire country, the incidences of electoral fraud vis-a-vis the incidences of complaints about bad leadership trumps the cases of electoral fraud. So what is it that has led us to that point where at every county you'll hear people complaining about their MCA and how their county assembly is doing, the kind of work that the county assembly is doing, the kind of laws that are being passed by the county assembly, the amount of checks and balances and holding the executive to account by the county assembly, and people feeling our assembly is basically in bed with the executive. At county level, then we come to the national level, our parliament is in bed with the executive. Why? It's not because of fraud. It's because of the character of the people that we have there. And all those people then reflect who we are.
When you talk of fraud, or malpractices in the electoral system, it doesn't perpetrate itself. There are people who are involved in these processes, whether it's ballot stuffing, whether it is...
the ballot didn't stuff itself.
No, it doesn't stuff itself.
And it's not the fellow who gave you the cash to stuff it that did it for himself.
And there are many, it's not one or two people, there are many people. And when you hear of situations where a possible candidate who seemed to be strong enough is hijacked, or look, these processes are perpetrated by people.
Look, a few hours ago we had a conversation, before we got into the studio about, young men around the country, young men and women around the country, riled up, given, X amount. What did we talk about? Crowds for hire. People who come in and they're ready to chant a particular direction. They're given money on the morning of an election or on the morning of a certain rally. How exactly do you want us to sing? What exactly do you want us to say? Okay, I can go and print a number of T-shirts and I can get... Who are those people?
If you want to understand...
It's mobilization.
Who are they?
Let me add a little spice to the example you've given. In a previous dispensation, I was a head teacher. Now, one of the things that I found particularly interesting was a situation where a student who had erred, and rather excessively, and we needed a parent to come so that we could have a conversation. I had the delightful experience of having an occasion when the mother of one such student came and explained to me about the problems they were having and how the father was not available. And as we're having this conversation,
the mother says, we have problems at home.
Yes, we know this child has this problem, but the father, is a truck driver, is hardly ever there. And so we have this problem, and I had never met the mother, never met the father. So one moment, then somehow the young man was not in the room, but he came in, and then there was movement, and the next thing I knew, this lady had stopped talking, opened the door of the office that I occupied, and moved out very, very quickly. I was puzzled. Why would this boy's mother suddenly move out very, very quickly? So my secretary at that time came in and explained to me and told me the boy's father was here. I said, okay, now
the alleged truck driver, absentee father.
When he came in, he told me where he worked. He was a truck driver. He explained to me that he had never gotten whatever notices because his son never brought them. So when I interviewed the son further, I found the son had actually hired this particular individual to actually come and represent him as the mother. So I found it fascinating. And I was dealing with a young man who had serious imagination. This was an enterprising young man in my mind, yes. Is that his entrepreneurial capacities were a little slanted to the left. But
a little?
Yes. You know the English language. Now, it's something I shared with...
So he had hired
a mother. Mom
yes.
for hire.
Mom for hire.
And given the mom a script.
And the mother had done well, really. Because me, I was taken in. I said, hey, this woman is really going through a problem here.
Yeah.
The father travels, is in Zaire, the truck driver is hardly ever there. Then the father appears, and suddenly he's not a truck driver. He's always at home. It's just that he's never gotten the notice. So,
what does that tell you?
What am I telling you? This was a young man. This boy was barely 16. Where on earth did he get this idea from? When I talked to other people who had a similar job to mine wasn't a lone case. It had happened before. They had also experienced. It wasn't widespread, but they had experienced it.
Yeah.
What am I saying? And this was in the previous century. So I am saying that sometimes when you talk about the anatomy of this thing that we call impunity and corruption, it's not in the activity, it's in the mind, because the activity simply
establishes the manifestation of what is in the mind.
What is already in the mind. Yeah. And it doesn't start when someone becomes an adult. It starts when someone is very young. And the power of example, which I keep talking about, I may appear like I hate out at politicians. I do. And for a very specific reason. They don't seem to understand the power of example that is vested in their activities. When I talk about top political leaders, it is because they give the power of example the sort of limelight we don't need. Bad examples. And these examples are followed. If it happens at the national level, it will happen at the county level. If it happens at the county level, it will happen at the ward level. It will happen at the individual level, and the children see it. So all your talk about propriety is talking to yourself and talking to the walls. It doesn't resonate. So our children, our young people, our youth will proceed to act upon the example they've seen you bring forth, not what you've said. So when you talk about this battle, you're talking about people who vote. It didn't start when they wanted to vote. It started when they were much younger. Much younger.
All of us as a people, as a nation, we recognize this as a challenge. I think we do. And that's why we come up with laws, and that's why we come up with something called Chapter 6 of the Constitution. That's why we have an Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. That's why we have all these things. It's because we recognize that this is happening.
Eric.
That's why if you go to the music and drama festivals, in fact, the drama festivals, many a time you will find the plays that are winning are reflecting these things. So we already know what our problem is.
Eric, then the power of example. You have a court ruling, and the highest officer in the land ignores it. You have a court ruling. It is as though the judges were talking to themselves. They are pronouncing the law. The power of example. You have a situation where you have committees in parliament where people are talking about corruption. And then we get to learn that these very people, not the ones in the committee, but within parliament itself, you have people who participate in this tenderpreneurship, as we call it. So you get stumped. You ask yourself, okay, so where does one move?
It starts from home.
Yes.
It starts right there. There's a wall written, Usikojoe hapa,
yes.
And Ukojoa.
And then there's a reinforcement of it by example. And now in this 21st century, in this communication age, it's worse because things that you could have kept hidden before, you have no clue what your child gets exposed to, so you don't even get to understand what they know. So even as you speak, well, out of just respect of you as a parent, they will listen to you, but they watch you more than they listen to you. And then they watch what leaders say. So when you tell them, oh, this is what we should do, what do you think a young person will get into leadership for? To lead? No. To do what to perpetrate the example that they have seen.
To follow. Let's take a break. At 9:15, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. What is it? Where is that break or the gap between established laws and implementation of those laws? Why is it that we are unable to really translate our laws into action? Good morning. Let's take a look at the weather and continue the conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, overcast conditions in Nairobi. Mostly cloudy today. It's still a bit warm though. 18 degrees. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. Partly cloudy in Nyeri as well at 18. Highs of 23 and lows of 14. It's sunny in Nakuru at 19. Highs of 27 and lows of 14. Mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 15. We'll see lows of 13 today with highs of 24. It's sunny in Kisumu at 21. Highs of 29 and lows of 18. It's also sunny in Kakamega at 21. Highs there will be 29. 32 will be the high in Mombasa, where rain showers continue through the morning. 27 degrees at the moment, coming down to lows of 24. Showering also in Malindi at 27. The lows will be 25. It's mostly sunny in Kampala. 26 the high and lows of 18. And we'll see light rain continuing in Dar es Salaam for most parts of this Friday. At 28 degrees, we'll see highs of 31. Johannesburg is sunny at 18. Highs of 29 and lows of 16. Whereby in Lagos, it still continues to be foggy. Highs of 34 and lows of 24. Light rain in Kinshasa continues this morning at 23 degrees, highs of 31 and lows of 22. Beijing is sunny at 4 degrees, going to highs of 5 and lows of -8. It's now 5 degrees in Paris and it's a rainy morning, highs of 9 and lows of 2. It's also 2 degrees in London, highs of 7, lows of 2. And now into Friday morning in New York, it's 3 degrees. We'll see highs of 6 and lows of -3.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A comment from Sindano who says, allow me to quote Macharia Gaido, who said, big problem in Kenya is that many decent, honest, reasonable, and well-educated men and women turn to politics. And then their brains turn to porridge. And he says, he asks himself, why insult the porridge? Talking about the power of Example City. And we were having a conversation with a group yesterday, actually. Remember the recent Law Society of Kenya meeting that turned chaotic? Almost people throwing blows. People were threatening to hit each other. So the clips have been going around that emerged out of that. So people are there, and there are some who are just recording, and the clips have gone around on social media. And there's this particular clip that I was watching that in this particular one, it's one of the leaders who is standing up and is trying to raise a point, and this is Edwin Sifuna, who is a member of the LSK. And there are people who are shouting him down. Sit down. Kaa chini. Sit down. And then they scream almost in unison, this is not ODM. He's ODM. And then he moves towards the podium and is given the mic. And others come and they are now trying to grab the mic from him. So basically, just the whole thing goes south. Mayhem. Chaos. Okay? And if you look at the clip and the people who are participating in this, all of them look fairly young in the age bracket of Edwin Sifuna and below, right? Not many in your age bracket, City. So you ask yourself, we still have people in your age bracket who are lawyers. Were they there in that AGM? Maybe not. Likely not. Same conversation I was having with one of the national leaders who was talking about, look at these strikes by doctors, by teachers, by nurses, and how they manifest. Well, doctors have tried not to go out to the streets, but the kind of argument that's put forth Whenever you have teacher strike, how teachers pour out into the streets, screaming haki yetu, yote yawezekana, bado mapambano, solidarity forever. You know, a teacher who is highly respected English teacher or mathematics teacher jumping up and down and doing gosh, the gosh, gosh, out there in public. And this person started the argument. Look at the age bracket of the people who are in the LSK meeting. These are people who are, let's say, in their late 20s, 30s into early 40s. These people were born, let's say, in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. Some of them were born in the 90s, grew up in the 2000s. What did they see as they were growing up? They grew up in that era of bado mapambano. No reforms, no elections. Parliament, no budget, no reforms, no budget. It's about grabbing the mace. Teachers' strikes. Universities and the riots and what we see. So this is what they have basically just the power of example. If you want to resolve an issue, you don't sit down around a table and have a conversation around it.
Anymore.
No. The only language is shout the other person down, outscream the other person, and make sure that they don't get the podium, they don't get the mic. In fact, make sure that disrupt the meeting if your agenda does not go your way. Disrupt that entire meeting. Wacha mkutano takwisha. Kiendelea namna hii, mkutano takwisha. We see that from our politicians. Now here we are. We are asking ourselves, so why is it that we cannot uphold the law? If you cannot uphold, and there's an AGM notice that had been sent. This is the agenda. Item 1, 2, 3. If you've got any other business that you'd like us to discuss, this is how you can forward it before the meeting. And then we shall acknowledge it at the meeting and discuss it. You come, agenda number 1, no, we want to discuss this.
The AOB,
there was a process.
The AOB becomes substantive.
That you did not even forward.
Yes.
It's not on record as AOB. This is what we want to discuss. And you're saying, now you're asking, why can't leaders uphold the law? Boss, which leaders? Which? We're the leaders. We're not upholding the law. We can sit back there and blame politicians. We can sit out there and blame, or we can even talk about, those who were there before us and what they did and how they behaved. But it's about just recognizing that you have a role to play.
And taking responsibility for it.
And you've given a perfect example. Perfect in the sense that before these people become waheshimiwa, they are in this camp. Yes. So it's not as though they acquire a new habit. They simply just turbocharge the habits, okay, when they get to those lofty offices. Now, why pot shots must be taken at them is for the simple reason that when you're sent to such a position of authority, which is representative, unfortunately, those bad examples cannot be. Look, even if you wanted to keep quiet, you make a decision that influences the lives of so many people.
Yes.
How does one sit back and just let that happen when you know very well it will be adverse?
But you see, the problem is, you will make noise before that person comes into your area of your sphere of influence or where you are. When that person comes, you're not going to tell them, look, my friend, look, what you have done is wrong. I am not going to listen to you. I need you to listen to me. No, you're going to, Mheshimiwa amekuja mpatie kiti. Mheshimiwa now talk. Mheshimiwa, our problem here is this and the other. And the guy will tell you, I need to deal with those other guys. So I need to mobilize, I need to, Mheshimiwa tutakusaidia sana. Mheshimiwa, we want us to beat them up. We can beat them up for you. This is it. So you're not holding this person to account, and then you're coming there to complain about them.
Taking responsibility and taking responsibility.
Eric, repeat what you've just said.
Board.
You don't hold these people to account. So the role that the Mwananchi is actually being asked is to hold your leaders to account.
Yes.
It's not complicated.
No.
Go to any part of this country, ask them about MP. In fact, just go to the negative side of the MPs. They'll tell you things. Wanajiongezeaga mshahara. kazi yao ni kukula tu huko juu, watufikiri sisi watu wa hapa chini. Mheshimiwa comes in.
Tulipiga kura tujamuona hapa.
Mheshimiwa comes. That whole thing that you guys were discussing, it changes. Karibu sana mheshimiwa.
Mid sentence.
Yes.
Huyu jamani.
Mheshimiwa karibu sana.
The thing is, it isn't something that is sorted out by some sporadic utterances. And this is where Mohammed of Mwakijembe is right. It has to be consistent. Daily, just keep piling it. When we had Mheshimiwa Shakil Shabir yesterday, and some of the things that I heard him say, the thing that kept running through my mind is, by the time a member of the August House comes to say these things, and it clearly points to people with whom he shares that same political space, it must... What he's talking about isn't what I would refer to as a garden variety problem. It's in the extreme. And it is widespread. It's the same logic that is used when
deep entrenched.
Yes, exactly.
That green spot is not a spot. It was actually dyed. The white was dyed in green.
So it's actually green. It's not a spot.
Green.
It's green. For real.
Green.
Because if you're talking about the law, for instance, why do you enact the law? Because there is an innate understanding that human beings are
going to go against the grain.
Yes. So the
natural inclination is to do the wrong thing. Yeah.
So the law isn't for those who are going to do the right thing.
No, it isn't really.
It is for those who are known to who desire to do things which are not necessarily right. Yes. So by the same token, if you look at what we are saying, you have people whose mandate is clear. But they are the very same people who are going to go and do the very same things or go against the very same things that they're supposed to do. The things they're supposed to protect, they're the first person to abrogate it. So when they stand up and talk about these things, you see, that's where now the public, when I say the public understands, they do. In their mind, they're saying, okay, so even you are, okay, fine, we hear what you're saying, but we know you. Our collective culture seems to be we don't go around telling people off, especially if they're in positions of authority.
Yeah.
No. And if you do, you'll be asked, why are you saying this against this person? For instance, if you have a leader in your community and is considered to be a venerable leader, dare you say something that even approaches a criticism? Even if what he's saying is true, you suddenly find that it is you who is on the wrong side.
Yeah.
Why are you saying this about this one? So you say, but it's true. Yeah, but why are you saying it?
It's bad manners.
So the understanding is that
disrespectful.
If the person is in a position of authority, then you shouldn't say anything. If it's true and it also appears to be negative, then you should say nothing about it.
When he had a further conversation off-air with Shakil Shabir, the MP, he told us, sometimes I feel like the citizens spoil the leaders. You're the ones who spoil us. You spoil us. I feel that because I'm an MP, I must travel business class whenever I'm flying. Because I'm an MP. All right? And yet, when I cease becoming an MP, the next time I travel, I'll be on economy, normally. When I come to any public gathering, you're going to stand up, you're going to, come and wash my hands while everybody else is washing their hands there. You're going to come and serve me at the table. You're going to give me that front row seat and you're going to call me Mheshimiwa non-stop. Why? And Becky is agreeing and saying, why do you call them Mheshimiwa or Honorable? Just address them, Mr. or Mrs. What's this honorable thing that they've done? All right, 29 minutes after 7. Time for us to look at what's happening on the roads.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Okay, traffic looking a little bit better in most parts. Coming off Mombasa Road, it's smoother. And also on Thika Road, there is still some coming into the CBD. Coming out of Westlands, we have more traffic outbound now than we had earlier, rather than that is inbound. Limuru Road is still held up a little bit. So we're looking at a very bad accident that took place near the Hilton Garden Hotel between a truck and, unfortunately, there are... it was a fatal one, and so folks are being asked to be careful about that. Apart from that, traffic looking much better in most parts. Let us know through the day what it looks like for you this Friday. Spice FMKE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Call and join this conversation. I'd love to know what you think. Why is it that we have that gap between laws enacted and application of the laws? The gap between laws and action.
I want to give you an example. You know, we talk about things and we say, no, it can never happen. So, okay, let's about 2 years ago, in a small, sub-county in New Zealand, there was a fire in one of the towns. And after that, there was what we would call post-event public participation. And members of the public came out and basically held the alderman, in this case, alderwoman, to account. And they'd asked her...
Meaning the MCA.
Exactly.
Kajura.
MCA, right? And said, resign, shame on you. Not because the fire happened. That one we understand. It's something that is natural. Things can happen. However, what you did or didn't do after the fire, there were people who lost their lives. There were those who were supposed to be taken care of. There were those who, for insurance, did not kick in. And they came out to ask and demand answers as to why this did not happen. Because guess what? When you came out, and I'm reading a story on BBC, when you came out and said that you were going to do certain things when our area was considered, you asked us to come and tell you in the event that you did not do your job. So, this 80 people were dead. People who survived then did not get any response from the council in terms of how they were supposed to be taken care of. On that alone, response. They asked for this woman's resignation. She resigned and said, actually, you know what? I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Her resignation came out as a result of people doing what? Holding her accountable and saying, you know what? This didn't happen.
Yep.
People have died. Insurance that was supposed to kick in did not kick in. And these are things that you said you were going to do. It was your responsibility. It laid right on your desk. If we leave you to do this, like in the manner in which you did, the next person also will come. That person out. Guess what? The next person who comes in is going to remember, hold on a minute, everything that I said that I was supposed to do, I then must do. And the people are not sitting back, say, remember the school that collapsed 2 years ago, right? Did you see people coming out and saying, actually, you know what? Who are we going to hold to account here?
Yep.
No.
Well, some suspended some people, but that was it.
No, people, individuals.
He
People
said
who
they were
lost
suspended.
the children, the families of the children who lost their lives, people who were in the area saying, the only thing we heard is that the local MP, we've not seen him for some time here. That was it. But here, people, individuals, parents, loved ones came out and said, you asked for our vote. We gave you our vote. Here's a typical example of what you did not do. So guess what? On that alone, you're not fit for the job. Come and go.
Come and go and sit down.
And she went and sat down.
From Siaya, let's hear from Mila Menga. Mila, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, ladies and gentlemen?
Fine,
we are well, thank you, Mila.
Now, I want to give a quick point on the issue of tribalism. I would propose that when you want to talk about the negativity in our politics in relation to tribe, kindly call it ethnic negative ethnicity. You know, tribalism is about if I'm a Luo and I'm taking ugali and samaki, it looks like it is my tribe. When somebody is taking mukimo and stew, Kikuyu, Mursik, so just call it negative ethnicity. Yeah, so that we understand clearly. And by the way, the diversity in our ethnic background, that diversity is good, and it is a rich diversity. that we should not make as if it is a bad thing. And it is something.
Are we able to harness it?
Yes,
Politically?
definitely.
Not
We
commercially,
are-
because I think commercially we have seen it. We're able to do it because we work with people from other ethnic organizations and other ethnic groupings, and there's no problem. Politically, are we able to harness it?
And that's where I'm coming to. You know, when you walk around Kenya and you use the Arungu Kangata's research method, and you see that every policeman has a dialect. He speaks like the Kiswahili they speak is like from a specific community, a specific tribe. Huh?
It's a police tribe.
Yes. Then you see and you say, okay, this, and that can be seen by any other Kenyan. You don't need to be learned to recognize that. And when you see the T is now coming down just after 10 years of someone's presidency, you see that there's something wrong somewhere. And that is what we should be talking about. When somebody is appointed at the peak of our leadership and is given the chance to appoint cabinet ministers, and you look at the numbers and you say majority of them comes from a certain community, a certain tribe actually, and you wonder what is going on. And I want to clarify something. The president did not talk about a tribe. The president talked about a community. He talked about Jamii. And the Kenyans are like, I don't know what is wrong with Kenyans. If you want to bring the issue of rotational presidency in respect to gender, who blocks you from bringing that point? Some people think like, is that our mind is tribal. You know, the president, I want to clarify, the president did not talk about Kabila. He talked about Jamii. And he repeated it in English, and he talked about community. He did not talk about a tribe.
So where is the difference in your translation?
A community can be a community of women. A community can be a community of young people.
So which community is this that is meant only two communities have so far occupied top leadership?
Now he talked about that. That does not block somebody from.
Did he mean
talking
community
about,
of men, or did he mean community of rich people? Did he mean what did he mean? If not tribe,
he is in a position to answer that. But me, what I want to clarify, he did not talk about tribe, and that must be clear. He did not talk about tribe, and that is the point I wanted to bring home today.
Okay, thank you very much, Mila.
Okay, welcome.
A lovely day in Siaya. 0719-012-600. That's the number you can call and join this conversation.
I don't know that you'll be able to break this responsibility or break it and say it lies squarely on the shoulders of one group of people, one set of people, because it's mixed. We've just said it now. Leaders are at one point normal, quote unquote, citizens.
Yep.
Citizens who take responsibility. Citizens at some point have an opportunity to be leader at some point and have also changed. Everybody bears responsibility. Everybody does. And I think that it's easy for us to blame one set of people and one set of circumstances. But then when we realize that everybody has a responsibility that they must play, the decision that you make as an individual, and then that decision that you make to put somebody there who you will still hold to account, who you hope takes responsibility, and in the event that they don't, also bring them to book. That's the thing. It's got to be across board. So when I say it's everybody's responsibility, it's what you do as an individual. It's what you do in terms of making a decision. It's the decision you make to hold that person accountable. Because look, you can't sit here and say, well, you know, certain things go wrong. There's fraud, there's corruption. But then you sit there in that cocoon year in, year out, and you say, well, you know, that's just how things are. That's how things are. And we don't have a choice.
It is what it
is. We don't have a choice. There's nothing we can do. Don't you know that that's how it has gotten worse? In fact, that's not how it used to be. It has gotten worse over the years. And here we are today. It's not how it was 10 years ago, but what do we do?
But
here
then I think and I agree, it brings in the issue of tradition. Over time, it should become the tradition that things happen this way. Right now we have that bad tradition where things happen this way and we say, we excuse it. That's unajua hii ni siasa bwana.
That's how it is.
Can we just make it a tradition and say this is how we do things? When you look at now the way, for example, Joe Biden's ascension into the presidency and what had happened just prior to that, and speaker after speaker, what they've been saying in the run-up to the swearing in of Joe Biden, this is not the American tradition. The American tradition is we shall have peaceful handover of power after a certain process has happened. When we see leaders taking responsibility and resigning, in Japan, where they take responsibility, and they don't just take responsibility, but they take a dagger and put it into their own skin, into their own body, taking responsibility over something has gone wrong, you actually go and kill yourself because something went wrong under your watch while you are in office. It's a tradition. It's a tradition that is in other parts of the world where somebody says, okay, this happened, it shouldn't have happened. I'm sorry, guys, I don't think I should continue. Or a tradition that makes a leader of a party who was just, you're no longer the leader of this party in the UK, but an investigation has been ordered and it's about how you treated a certain investigation. It didn't happen while you were the leader of that party. And the party basically just tells you, you know what, we suspend you from the party because of what you did not do when you were our leader. And we found out what did not do it. Tradition, it takes a while, but we'll get there. Just before you come in, CT, let's hear from Ronaldo. Ronaldo Juma is in Kiambu. Good morning, Ronaldo.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
That's great. So my thought would be that we're actually blaming the wrong people in this kind of a game, because you realize that this country is a very democratic country. So as much as we would put blame on maybe the people talking about this issue of rotational whatever, the thing that is at stake right now, it is actually the Mwananchi who has the vote. However much they talk about it, we are the co-authors of our own misfortune, because we are given an opportunity to actually elect, and we have the vote and we have the voice. But when it comes to that time, we align ourselves to some miserable little, cocoons and groups, just because we have been hypnotized by our leaders, and they're telling us that, if you don't go this way, it won't work. But if suppose everyone took this as a personal initiative and we forget about the tribal and ethnic lines that we align ourselves to, and be more subjective in our way of thinking on how we look at issues. If someone is from, let's say, Giriama community, and he has the potential and the ability, and he has exposed that to us and has actually been able to persuade us, why not give the chance to that person? Why only this, I think it is us as the Wananchi who are the authors of our own misfortune, and we should not take the blame to maybe our leaders talking about, because we are the ones who are empowered by the virtue that we are the ones who are voting, and not the political class that will be voting. So those are my thoughts with regards to what we're discussing.
Very good thoughts, very well articulated. Thank you very much, Ronaldo.
All right. Thank you.
All right. City, you wanted to come in before Ronaldo.
When you talk about traditions, I was thinking about it and how interesting it is. And you see, you mentioned Japan. My mind went to South Korea. They have a tradition of even jailing their own presidents.
Yep.
If you are found to have done some wrong, that law applies to you. And if it means that the punishment for the wrong is jail, you will go to jail. It's a tradition. So you commit an ill knowing very well that there will be a time of reckoning. See, our time of reckoning in our tradition is, so long as you're in a certain position, nothing will happen to you.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, some noise will be made about it. It may appear in the papers. Some people will say certain adverse things about it, and that will be that.
It ends there.
It is a horrible, terrible tradition. And it cannot end in good. No.
We need to reverse that. And that's also now the role of leadership, right? Because as citizens, and like you said, the power of example, if we start getting leaders who take that responsibility, leaders who say, okay, a woman and her child died while attempting to cross this ferry channel, their vehicle slipped off the ferry and they died. It has exposed a lot of things. I take responsibility. I step aside. I take, not because I feel I'm guilty, but because I feel responsible. Now here, our tradition is, I'm not guilty. When I'm the one who was driving that.
I wasn't there.
I wasn't there. It's not me. We have a law. We have a bill in Parliament. In fact, we have set aside a budget. In fact, we have done this and the other. No, responsibility is, okay, let me show that this is not the way things should go. This is not how things should happen. And therefore, I take responsibility and I show. We'll need to have examples, 1, 2, 3, 4, for that to happen.
Until it
or even
becomes
just standing up and saying, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. I said this. I said we're going to give you stadia. I'm sorry. We are not going to be able to give you stadia. Instead, I'd like to alter that pledge and say we can do this and the other.
For sure. But how do things become normal? Because you see them over and over and over and over again. If you hear that these are the things that are coming out of the mouths of people, after some time will become normal. Hold on a minute. Somebody was supposed to do something, they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And because of that, it has resulted in 1, 2, 3 losses. The person comes out, apologizes, steps down from the position and gives another person the opportunity to do this right. Happens once, okay? It might shock you to death at some point, but all right. It happens again. Maybe that then doesn't destabilize you as much. You start to realize, okay, so this is the normal way to do things. This is the right way to do things. Guess what? You also, your mindset will begin to change. And it's, it bubbles over. It will begin to change and it will become normal that you do what you're supposed to do. All right. So maybe you're given a chance to do it again and then you don't. You leave it for somebody else to do. It is possible for right behavior to be normalized at the very basic level, up until the very top. It may look like such a far place, that top, but guess what? How did it become normal for the wrong things to happen? It took time, but it did. We all can talk about times when things were easy and simple and they got done in the manner in which they were supposed to do. Everybody has stories about how their fathers worked in certain places and never took a dime, never did things out of the recommended lines. Never did. And then
the
people
pride
who
was
are doing
that.
them now,
Pride
whose
was on
fathers
how
and mothers
they
are
did
they?
their job.
Yeah, the people who are doing them now, they're not people's mothers and fathers. They are. It has become normalized. It is possible to denormalize bad behavior and reinstitute good behavior. It is possible.
Twitter MCA says, let's have Kenyan Juakali solutions to our ukabila. If you could just scroll it up a little bit there. Because we can improve from there. Let's pass the BBI and work on development. We are too poor for utopian ideals. Rwanda authoritarian regime providing functional state.
Whenever people refer to an African state as being authoritarian, it precludes, not precludes, it seems to point to something which in my mind is not entirely true. And that is that there's only one way in which a democracy can work. And that an alternate to it which doesn't conform to what is considered the standard, then cannot be democracy. And this is not true, not in my opinion. You see, if I wanted to give an example, what recently happened in America would provide me as the best example. And you would see that the democracy that they have espoused for the longest time is a democracy worth exemplifying. It's a democracy worth following. But we have witnessed the extent to which that democracy can be taken in the negative. And we have seen how it is that systems that have been entrenched can actually bring about a normalization. But it doesn't mean that that is the only form of democracy that exists. There are other countries that would argue they practice democracy, but it may not necessarily follow the strict lines. Scandinavian countries follow democracy that one could argue has more of a socialistic leaning.
Yeah.
Meaning socialistic in this sense, that the aspect of ensuring that there's equity in the living standards of the citizenry takes center stage. So that you can be wealthy, yes, but it's very expensive to be wealthy. They tax almost the living daylights out of you. But because of that equitable distribution of wealth, then you have countries that are extremely stable. There are those who would argue they're not really that many. It doesn't really matter. But they are stable. And the stability is more or less a guarantee. Because everyone has some guarantees. There are certain things that you can take for granted that you will get and that your country will provide or that your government will provide for you. Now, if you look at the democracy in America, the one thing that you will find that they also have problems with poverty lines. They also have problems with people who live below what you call minimum wage in their own country. And the countries that I've mentioned don't have that same problem. They actually don't. And if they do, it's to a degree that statistically is almost negligible.
Yep.
So which one do you follow? Which is the example? And I'm saying that you need to find an example that actually works for you. Now, our leaders have had an opportunity to do something that is unique. One, they achieved stage one of giving us a constitution, and we supported it. So we got ourselves a constitution that is remarkable.
Yeah.
Now there's phase two, living by that constitution and implementing it.
Yeah.
Instead of having the leadership itself fighting against that constitution and providing a platform from which you wonder, but why do people in leadership, or some of them, appear to be sabotaging this very same thing?
Document.
Yes, exactly. Because any activity that comes from them, you try to look at it as honestly as you can, and you get to feel there are some people who seem determined that this thing shouldn't work. And so, of course, it leads to the question of why. And that's why the argument of people trying to propagate such impositions, that's why that argument begins to hold water. There may be an alternate way of looking at it, but given our experience, you get the feeling that no, some people don't really want this status.
They don't want this thing.
No,
they don't want this
really.
thing.
They're not really interested in it.
It's not serving them.
No. Instead of looking at, is it really going to serve the larger public?
Yeah.
Somehow, this movement, when you get into leadership or when you aspire to it or when you're in it, for leaders to understand that it really behoves you to do something, not think, not talk, that actually guarantees that the common mwananchi will be served well and that certain basics can be taken for granted. That simple thing, it seems to escape them completely. And that this wealth that they pursue, you can actually get it. And not only get it, but get it without looking back and wondering what's going to happen to you next. Because
I think that I think what's lost is that when you make this thing that you're looking for, you're almost guaranteed it. This thing that makes you go into and you're chasing your own selfish needs, you are almost guaranteed it if you go in to make the lives of other people better and their surroundings better. That you do that, you are guaranteed of making your own life better. If you're going in making that decision, I actually want to make my life better, guess what? Use the route of making life for the people over which you're leading, make it better for them. The surplus comes to you. And I wish we would just get to that place where you can understand and say, look, I'm going into this position of leadership. Making life better for other people also guarantees that mine will be made better. However you choose to count those gains, then now is up to you. But it is clear that gains come to those. Look, I mean, we have many examples of those who took their positions and used it for the better good of those who were, in a small region, in a country. Look at them today. And look at where they are today in terms of how they've gained.
Yep.
It's clear. It's clear. I don't know. And I would challenge, I don't know anybody who's gone into a position of leadership trying to make life better for those people around who has not gained, who hasn't gained. To me, it's not to say that it's a magic wand that you're going to, float around in the air and then you get the result. It takes hard work. It takes sweat. It takes dedication. It takes time. It takes commitment. But why? If you're saying you're going into that position in the first place, those are the things that you're going to have to employ to get the job done. Why ask for anything more? Or less?
It's all about leadership. And leadership does not only sit in political leadership. It also comes to the community as well. At community level, then, how do we live up to those ideals of leadership? At community level, as in family units, in local community, in your estate, in your village, how do you show that leadership? in church, religious organizations, religious groupings. How is it? Because we seem to, those ones, there's some sort of level of decorum that is exercised until someone enters the political realm. Same person who was a very good chairman of Nyumba Kumi, same person who was a very good chair of the women's organization, same person now turns into politics, and you see things changing. And then they move and they play in a whole completely new game. It's completely different arena, and their expectations are also different in how they're going to conduct themselves, how they're going to behave. It's going to be different. And then we look at that same person and you ask them yourself, okay,
What
so
happened to you?
at what point did their brain turn to porridge? Ujimoto. And we find ourselves there.
You see, in the same manner that corruption and everything associated with this has been normalized, it's incremental. In the same way, change also will be incremental, but it has to start, and where it has started, it must continue. Because if anyone lets go of that particular process, then you go back to factory settings.
Right back there.
Yes, you go right back there.
Okay. That's why we have these conversations every day, and we hope that, as we have this, as we challenge one another, as we agree, disagree, as our audience joins in and shares their perspectives, we agree. We don't always have to agree, but at least let's have the conversations. Because by and by, these conversations will lead us to a better place, where we can see, okay, this is somewhere better. This is how we can hold ourselves accountable. This is how we can put our leaders in those positions and then hold them accountable. This is how we shall have leaders who serve the people and not just lead by being the bosses. Thank you very much for tuning in today, CT. Tell us about the Sparrow and why you decided to close the week with this one.
The Sparrow said that since the hunter has learned to shoot without missing, it has equally learned to fly without perching. Well, let me put it simply. How do we develop and create habits? It's lived experience. You learn something because you've seen it, you've experienced it, and you understand. So it's like we need to experience very extreme levels of poverty and difficulty economically for us to understand what it is that we know we must do, but we keep avoiding to do in order to bring about change in our lives. We'll talk about going to the ballot and voting, yes. But having voted, because we will vote, the one thing that is not that difficult, holding your leaders to account for the things they have said. So even as you think of voting, let's pause. Before you go, all these people, can you demand that everyone who aspires for a position of leadership, political leadership, everyone, standard operating procedure, this is what I'm going to do, and the expectations are these, and this is what, yes.
This will be the deliverables.
And this is what you can judge me by year 1, year 2, year 3. Demand it. And anyone who's standing for any position doesn't present it, that person has disqualified themselves even before you begin. Demand it. And then hold them accountable. Because if you don't demand it, what are you going to be holding them accountable with?
Yeah, because you come and say, well, you did. Well, when did I ever tell you I was going to do that?
Let it be written. Let everybody even know and have a copy of it and say, Mheshimiwa, this is what you said.
And even paint a picture of success. Because someone can come and tell you, tumeanza. We have laid a strong foundation for this to happen.
And we have met with so-and-so and talked to so-and-so and they've assured us.
Yes.
No.
In fact, if you ask so-and-so, we had a meeting yesterday.
All right. Short term, what do you expect to, not here, see, we've heard. And from this, what do you expect to see? It's something that can be done.
Indeed, it can. Asante sana for tuning into the Situation Room this week. Join us again next week. So next week, the NMS is launching those hospitals. We'll hopefully have a conversation with the NMS. We'll also hopefully have a conversation with the political leadership, with the leadership of civil society and community leadership, as well as our listeners on very many other conversations and things that are taking place in the world and around us. So join us on Monday